been missing for weeks. Sarah Johnson, as well as John Hendricks, haven't been seen since March 20th, and police say there's evidence to suggest they were shot. 28-year-old Matthew Jacob Leonard has been booked into jail on suspicion of aggravated murder and obstruction of justice. Police are asking he be held without bail. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Trump says the U.S. military will be imposing their own blockade on the Strait of Hormuz and have done so after talks between the U.S. and Iran failed. ABC News chief global affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz says Iran has already threatened to target U.S. ships in the area.
The U.S. military says the blockade will be enforced against vessels of all nations attempting to enter or exit Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. forces stress they will not impede the navigation of boats coming to or leaving from non-Iranian ports. It's not clear how the blockade will be enforced or whether ships moving within the strait will allow searches from the U.S., or, of course, whether any ships will even enter the strait.
The U.S., according to the Trump administration, will be targeting vessels utilizing Iranian ports. Your money at this moment, the Dow down 200 points this morning to 47,708. Coming up, it looks like we've got crashes still affecting your drive, so we'll check weather and traffic together. Coming up right now, KSL News Time, 9:01.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code STATION25 to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code STATION25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code STATION25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
I'm Christian Staples with Arctic Spas. Wellness starts at home. At Arctic Spas, we have what you need for home wellness. Hot tubs provide physical and mental relaxation, improve circulation, and stimulate better sleep, all while giving the perfect time to connect with loved ones. Swim spas and all-weather pools provide at-home, low-impact exercise, a break from gravity, and family fun. Cold tubs provide muscle recovery, reduce soreness, and provide the best mental boost. Saunas help you recover, detox, and improve your cardiovascular health. This can all be done at your home, ready whenever you are, and you can find it all at Arctic Spas. We are here to help you relax, exercise, and recover. We make it easy for you. You can find out more at ArcticSpasUtah.com or stop by one of our 3 stores covering all of Utah in Salt Lake, American Fork, and St. George. Arctic Spa, the only spa built for Utah's harsh climate.
This Mother's Day, give her more than just a gift. Give her comfort that she'll feel every single day. From Minky Couture, the blankets moms everywhere are obsessed with. Discover all new arrivals just in time for Mother's Day. We're talking brand new spring colors, fresh floral-inspired designs, and Minky's softest, coziest fabrics yet. Whether she loves something light and airy or plush and luxurious, there's a Minky made just for her. Perfect for relaxing, recharging, and wrapping yourself in some well-deserved me time. And for a limited time, enjoy special Mother's Day deals in-store and online. Plus, KSL will be live at the Layton location this Friday from 10 to 1 for the movie show. Stop by, shop Minky for mom or yourself, and use code MOVIE50 at checkout for 50% off any regularly priced blanket. Again, that's promo code MOVIE50 online at MinkyCouture.com or at a store location near you. Because she's given you everything. This year, give her something she'll truly feel. Minky Couture, made for moments that matter.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by UCCU. Earn 4.24% on savings at UCCU.com. Cormac Bone, what do you see?
Well, Andy, we see some pretty heavy delays on southbound I-15 in Roy. Looked like there could have been a crash or something there, but it's eased up just a little bit. Looks like it's just due to that construction zone, especially approaching 5600 South. And we are still seeing some delays southbound Legacy Highway through Woods Cross, especially near 5th South, where we do still have a crash. They're off on the right shoulder, though, and those delays have also eased up. Northbound I-15 delays are still long from about 90th South Midvale all the way up to about 4500 South Murray. There was a crash. It looks like that's cleared off the road, but the delays are still there. Traffic's rough, but your parking lot doesn't have to be. GoPave Utah keeps things smooth with expert asphalt maintenance at GoPaveUtah.com. That's GoPaveUtah.com. Cormac Bone in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather forecast today, partly cloudy with a chance of rain showers. Tomorrow, temperatures will be similar, but without the storms. Expect highs in the low 60s if we even reach 60. Right now, though, 41 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
Normally, Holly, you'd expect the Salt Lake County Democratic Convention to be a bit of a yawner, but this year is a lot different, and there are things going on, a couple of surprises, and a little more fireworks than you'd normally expect.
So just to remind our listeners, county conventions have to deal with races that are contained within a single county. So when you're talking about the races that either cross county boundaries, even for a state house seat, for example, that will be at the state convention, which is in 2 weeks. Both the Democrat and Republican parties are having their conventions on the 25th of April. But it was pretty interesting, even for me from the outside looking in, to see some of what happened on Saturday.
Yeah, so one of the things that surprised me was the Salt Lake County District Attorney race. This is the position currently held by Sim Gill. And I will say this, 16 years ago, I ran for that position, and I was ousted by Gill at the convention.
Oh, wow.
That was my only loss to a Democrat. My other two were AG races to a Republican. But I did run as a Democrat at the convention level and lost. Sim has then run. He ran in 2010, 14, 18, and 22. So he served 4 terms, running for his 5th term. But what was surprising to me was that he was actually beaten, but not by enough, to a lawyer who works for the Utah Attorney General's office named Sean Robinson. I think a lot of us know Sean. He's a real good guy, a real good lawyer, and as is Sim. But he threw his name in. I hadn't heard about much he was doing in terms of campaigning, in terms of getting delegate support, but he ended up getting 52.5% of the delegates. If he had received 55, he would have avoided a primary altogether.
Right. Yeah,
so I think it was
right.
much closer than Sim probably expected.
Yeah, and so now that'll go to a primary, and that's in June. And I mean, I might put you on the spot here, but how do you see maybe a primary play out? Because primary voters are often different than delegate voters.
So I'd say both of them have a little bit of baggage, and I don't mean baggage in a bad way, but I mean Sean Robinson is largely unknown. He's got to get his name out if he wants to get support by the time of the primary, and people need to get to know him. Sim Gill's got the opposite. He's been around a bit. He's maybe served more terms than he should, and maybe some people would feel that he needs to move on. The Salt Lake Tribune posted something after his 2nd or 3rd victory that, hey, enough's enough and he should bow out. But, of course, he keeps running, he keeps winning, and he keeps winning by a significant margin. He's beaten some very, very good Republicans, but it is Salt Lake County. So I think Sim's got the baggage of maybe he's been around too long, and Robinson's got the baggage of who is this
an unknown.
man? Right. Both of them need to work on that.
There was another interesting thing that happened as well. So we've talked a lot about Utah's 1st Congressional District. That's the new one. And the number of people who were in that race. And we had, I think, a fairly well-known person drop out of that race.
Yeah, Kathleen Reby announced that she was dropping out. She was the first person to jump in. And if you recall, she actually ran in 2023 for an open slot for Congress when Chris Stewart stepped down.
Yeah.
She ran against Celeste Malloy in a very Republican district. She lost, but she did an admirable job and stood up to the plate for the Democrats. And I think that they have always felt like she she stood up for the team and went out of her way to jump into a race that was probably she didn't have a great chance of winning, and she didn't have a lot of time to get up to speed, but she ran in that race. She was the first person to announce for the 1st Congressional District when the new district was set up. Of course, her numbers were not great. I was looking at the last poll that had her at 7% of the Democrats. Bluen was at 23%, and Ben McAdams was at 36%. So she had a lot of work to do. She bowed out, indicated that she was not going to run, and threw her support to Ben McAdams.
Yeah. And, one of the things she said, and she told this to the Salt Lake Tribune, is that it really is about fundraising. And she said, I'm sad that big money rules the day, and part of me feels like I could still squeak it out, but I don't have the finances for it. And it makes me sad if you don't have the money, you can't win.
Yeah, and she made a comment that I thought was interesting, that she thought, and I think that if I had her words correctly, that she thought Ben had the bandwidth for it and the funds. So he certainly, they were talking about Ben McAdams, has a sort of a head over Nate Bluen in terms of
financially.
Financially, he's raised a lot of money. But he's also seen as a more moderate Democrat than Bluen, who is seen as more liberal. And that who knows how that'll play in the primary. It certainly, we'll find out at the state convention, like you mentioned, in a couple weeks how that happens. I think both of them have gone the signature route just as an insurance policy, depending on how that goes.
Yeah, I think there will be several people on that primary ballot, more than 2. Okay, I have a couple of other races to tell you about. And
time out. How could there be more than 2? So
county council.
I
State
thought
House.
you meant there would be more than 2 people on the ballot for 1st Congressional District
I do mean that.
primary.
Oh yeah, because you can have whoever comes out of convention, and you can have 2 people come out of convention,
right.
plus anybody who gets signatures who doesn't come out of convention.
Of course.
So you can have multiple people on the ballot for the primary. That's
I
how.
digress.
Okay, no worries.
That's why I like you.
Thank you. So, look, I wanted to talk about county council races. So, Salt Lake County Council at-large seat A, Zach Robinson won 57% of the delegate vote, so he is the nominee. There were 5 people in that race originally. Salt Lake County Council District 3, Luke Maines is the nominee. He got 58% of the vote.
Those are high numbers.
Those are,
especially when you mentioned that there were more than 2 people in the races. It's not just a plurality, but it's a significant majority. And in the Democratic convention, 55% gets you.
Yes,
as the primary.
It gets you out of convention without a convention candidate.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you this next race, they both got signatures, and they both will be in the primary. So Stephanie Pitcher, which is Senate District 13, she got 59% of the delegate vote. Her opponent, which is Taylor Cater, I think is how you say his last name, got signatures, and so even though he's not going as a convention candidate, he will be on the primary ballot.
Pitcher served in the legislature for some time.
She is. So I'm talking about state Senate districts.
Right. But and then she ran for Senate. It's only served a term. I thought done a seemingly good job. I was surprised that she had a Democratic opponent. But this year, there's so many Democrats jumping into some of these races. I guess nothing should surprise me.
So State Senate District 14, Evan Dunn got 60%. Sylvia Catton, I don't know. I'm sorry, Sylvia, got 40%. But we also have Taylor Payton. They all 3 collected signatures. So the first 2 got out of convention. No, the first one got out of convention. 2 more got signatures. So that one will be a 3-way primary. In the State House 21, Stephen Otterstrom got 52% and Aaron Wiley got 48%. So those 2 will be going to a primary. In State House 26, Michael Finch got 72% and he will be the Democratic nominee. In State House 34, which is the one that Carol Spackman Moss is leaving, Aaron Jemison got 53%. Julie Jackson got 47%. So that's going to a primary. State House 39, Drew Howells got 61%. So he's the nominee. In State House 40, Wendy Davis and Andrew Stoddard are going to a primary. So Wendy got 52% and Andrew got 48%. And then
surprised that Andrew didn't do better than that.
And
since
then
he's been around.
State House 41, John Arthur, who is a new representative, got 100% of the vote. even though he had an opponent. Okay.
Seriously.
Yep. Okay, now we're going to switch to murder because, that's what we do here. So a Springfield man has been arrested, and he's accused of killing his mother and another man who've been missing for weeks, but the bodies still haven't been found. So I'm going to ask you questions about that when we come back after the break.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
1-877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids. 1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today. 1-877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids. 1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Ready to get rid of that old car? Donate it to Cars for Kids. Call 877 Cars for Kids to speak to a friendly live agent. Donation is super easy, and your car can be picked up as soon as tomorrow. Go to carsforkids.org now or call 877 Cars for Kids to donate your car today.
1-877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids. 1-877 Cars for Kids.
Did you know you can donate real estate too? Go to carsforkids.org. That's cars with a K.
This is Nate Orchard from Advanced Window Products. When you live in Utah, your windows do a lot more than let the light in. They protect your home from freezing winters, blazing summers, and everything in between. That's why Advanced Window Products builds every window for your local climate. No middleman, no out-of-state delays, just factory direct quality, custom made for your home. Imagine a quieter home, a warmer home, a cooler home. Our high-efficiency vinyl windows are engineered to lower your energy bills and boost your comfort all year round. And installation is done by our own certified in-house crews, never subcontractors. That's why Utah homeowners give us 5-star reviews. Right now, take advantage of our anniversary sale. For a limited time, get $2,500 off when you buy 10 or more windows. Call 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. For 40 years, Advanced Window Products has been the name Utah trusts for custom replacement windows and sliding glass doors. Advanced Window Products, built here, installed here, trusted here. Call 801-850-9100 for that $2,500 off or visit us at advancedwindows.com to schedule your free in-home estimate.
What is it, boy? Someone need help? Someone in trouble? Oh, okay. So you just want me to get Progressive Auto Insurance because their collision coverage covers up to $1,000 in vet bills if you're injured in an accident? That's it? Okay. Calm down. Let's not resort to name calling.
Progressive's collision coverage helps pay for care for your pet when they're in the car during an accident.
No, you're right. Sorry. I shouldn't have said calm down.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Coverage included with purchase of collision coverage and subject to policy terms.
Get in the zone, AutoZone. Annie's first oil change wasn't as hard as she thought because she went to AutoZone, where a friendly AutoZoner helped her find the right oil and save on an oil filter. He explained the job and showed her free how-tos on AutoZone.com. When she was done, AutoZone recycled her old oil for free. No hassles, just help. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply.
Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
911, tell me exactly what happened.
My son and his wife and their 2 children haven't
responded.
Susan Powell disappeared on a snowy morning in 2009.
Your wife is missing, Josh.
Yeah, but I've
And you want to think about it for a couple of days?
The podcast, Cold, has gone deep on these kinds of stories.
I'd had this overwhelming feeling that he had done something to her already.
Clearly, something happened on that couch because he cleaned it.
Find and follow Cold wherever you get your podcasts.
The new Inside Sources.
A Springville man has been arrested, accused of killing his mother and another man, but the part that stood out to me is the bodies still haven't been found.
The last time anyone reported seeing Sarah Johnson and John Hendricks was on March 20th at the home of Johnson's son, 28-year-old Matthew Jacob Leonard. That report came from a witness who police say told them they thought they heard gunshots go off inside the home and they couldn't reach Johnson or Hendricks after that point. According to arrest documents, when police later searched Leonard's home, they say they found large amounts of blood, bullet holes, and shell casings. Leonard has since been booked into the Utah County Jail on suspicion of aggravated murder and obstruction of justice. Police, though, are still trying to find both Johnson and Hendricks' bodies. Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
Yeah, so I know the question you're going to ask, but let me just lay a little more foundation here.
Okay.
This is the fourth time he's been booked into jail.
Oh.
He's got a stalking charge from March. It may be the same victim. He's got a electronic communication harassment, in other words, phone harassment from March. It may be the same victim. And then he got booked into jail this weekend on possession with the intent to distribute a controlled substance, possession of a dangerous weapon, drug and other charges. And when I got here this morning, that was all he was booked in on lately. But just in the last few minutes, the Utah County Attorney's Office has filed an affidavit of probable cause accusing him of aggravated murder. In other words, a case that could very well include the death penalty. 2 counts. And 1 count of obstructing justice, which is also a felony of the second degree. So these are new charges now that have just recently been filed. Now, these aren't even charges. This is just a probable cause affidavit.
Right, and they have 72 hours to file the actual charges, as I understand.
Exactly, yes. Or let him out.
Or let him out. Okay, so tell me how they can charge aggravated murder with no bodies, although it sounds like there was a lot of blood at the scene.
Yeah, so again, in a court of law, you have to prove a case by what we call beyond a reasonable doubt. You have to have a substantial amount of evidence, but you don't need to have 100% evidence. So obviously, if you did, you'd have to have a body. Given the circumstances that they've got there, the Utah County Attorney's Office believe that based on the fact that these 2 individuals have not been found, that no one can find them, that there was blood at the scene, I am assuming they've done some sort of forensics on the blood, that they have determined that it is more likely than not that he was the suspect in those murders and have booked him into jail on murder. So this is... There was a lot more to it. This probable cause statement is really long. Statements that he made, statements that he didn't make, and just the search of his room, things that they found. I mean, this probable cause statement goes for 3 pages, and this is just a page to document to keep him in jail. So there's a lot that the county attorney's office and the law enforcement agency involved here put together to try to keep him in custody based on what they think is a double homicide, a double capital homicide.
So you mentioned one of the previous charges against him was obstruction of justice. Is that correct?
No, he's charged with obstruction of justice on the current charge. The 2 previous charges involve electronic communication harassment and stalking, 2 different cases.
Okay. So when you said the obstruction, I'm looking at a KSL story that says that once his mother was reported, which is about 6 days after she was last seen, Springville police contacted the suspect who filled out a missing persons packet while officers were investigating. So is that how he was obstructing?
Right, yeah. So if
he's like, I don't know.
There's 2 things you can do when a police officer comes, and if you lie to them, that's obstructing. If you say, I'm not going to talk to you, or I don't know anything, or I don't wish to participate in this, that's another. But when he fills out a missing persons sheet, what he's doing is he's leading the police on a different direction. He's trying to take them into a way to get them off the trail, so to speak. That's obstructing justice. When you take steps to divert the law enforcement's investigation.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked on this show before about several cases where they haven't found the body of the person who is presumed to have been killed. So tell us, in this situation, is there are there searches that are going to happen? Is it part of a police investigation? Are they going to be talking to him about, hey, you could be facing the death penalty here? What happens?
Yeah, all of the above. Those are great questions. So I assume that Springville Police Department, which is a very good police agency there in Utah County, is looking everywhere they can. Now, two bodies are going to be hard to hide, and so it may be just a matter of time before they're found. Of course, there's a lot of times when we don't find bodies, but if they're in the weeds somewhere, with the people hiking around, looking around, chances are something will be found here, maybe sometime in the next weeks or months, or who knows, years. Sometimes it just takes a while. But again, the police don't need a body. It helps a murder case when you have the body of the crime. We call it the corpus delicti, so to speak. The body, it makes a huge difference. But you can prosecute a case without that. I'm assuming that they are doing everything they can. And I'll tell you something else. Now that they booked him into jail on aggravated murder, they've done a lot of forensics. So they may be looking for example, if they found something on his car that had a specific kind of dirt, that they could go, oh, that's dirt from the sand hills, or that's, they find some other things that might lead them to a particular area. You can really, there's almost a DNA in soil samples, believe it or not, where you can find things and look up things. They may also look at where his phone, if they've tracked his phone, where it went during the previous 6 or 7 days, and try to recreate all of that. So I'm sure the officers are well on that search, and my guess is they'll probably find these bodies sometime soon.
So one of the things that I understand is that there were witnesses who said that they heard gunshots, I think, on March 20th, the last time that Sarah Johnson was seen alive.
That's also really compelling circumstantial evidence, right? If you have gunshots, you have missing bodies, you have blood at the scene. Those are things that put together, and you have this history. I mean, you look at
bullet
these
holes in the wall. I
right,
understand, yeah.
And you look at these prior acts. I mean, the stalking, the telephone harassment. I mean, there's a history with this man allegedly that he was harassing these people, and that he had some relationship with them, obviously, which is spelled out here, and that they feel like, oh, this he's got to be the guy that killed them as well.
I don't understand. I don't understand murder. I'll just say that, right? Like, I just wonder what would drive somebody to shoot and kill his mom. And then I don't know what the relationship is with the other man, if it was random or not random.
Yeah, a female with a male that referred to as the missing male. No, we don't know what that is. But I mean, how could you ever get to the point where you'd harm your mother? I mean, no matter what was happening, no matter what was going on, you're just not the kind of thing you do. But given his history with these other charges of stalking and telephone harassment, and then when they go, even on the murder case, when they go to the house, they find controlled substances, they find firearms, they find more controlled substances, they find drug paraphernalia. And in Utah, you can't possess guns and drugs at the same time. So even if you're otherwise a legal person, if you have drugs in your house, you can't have guns in your house. That's a crime by itself.
Well, that makes sense, actually.
Right. So those are charged too, and they found bullet casings, firearms. He admitted owning the guns. He admitted transferring the firearm to his grandfather after the alleged homicide was supposed to have occurred. He also admitted that he had drugs. So in terms of the drugs and guns charges, those are pretty compelling. The the homicide charge, he hasn't made an admission to, or at least said anything that would, at least not that I can see in the probable cause statement. I'm sure they're talking to him.
Yeah, so what happens next?
So they have, like you said, 72 hours to charge him or release him, which would be unlikely. They'll probably charge him. Right now he's held on no bail because it's a homicide, so no matter what's going on, he can't post bail, and he'll be held there for some time. And that 72 hours is sort of arbitrary. The state can always go in and say, hey, can we get another extension? And judges will grant that. And 72 hours does not include holidays and weekends. So if he's booked in, I mean, the clock started this morning. So, so technically they've got a fair amount of time.
Okay. Well, we're going to follow that, I think.
And I'll tell you what's troubling about that. I know we're running out of time. Utah County,
they've had more than their fair share.
The last thing they need is another capital homicide. They've got that, the Michael Jane, that ran over allegedly the police officer, Santaquin police officer. They've of course got the
Tyler Robinson,
accused of killing Charlie Kirk. I mean, they've got their share of big homicide cases.
Yes, they do.
Well, and we've got our share of interest in terms of what's going on with the war in Iran. But after more than 20 hours of deliberation, peace talks between the U.S. and Iran have failed. This morning, the U.S. is now, we're hearing, blockading Iranian ports and coastal areas and blocking the Strait of Hormuz.
That was already blocked.
Well, now it's their turn. Now we get to block it. We'll talk about that when we come back.
9:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Andy Farnsworth. KSL's top story this hour: after marathon talks between the U.S. and Iran failed to reach a deal this weekend, President Trump saying he doesn't care if they come back to the negotiating table or not.
On social media, Iran's Speaker of the Parliament dismissing Trump's threat, writing, "Enjoy the current pump figures. With the so-called blockade, soon you'll be nostalgic for $4 to $5 gas." Tensions escalating after 21-hour peace negotiations over the weekend. The highest level of talks between the two countries in 47 years fell apart. Vice President J.D. Vance, who is leading talks, says the administration put their, quote, final and best offer on the table. But Iran's lead negotiator blaming the U.S., saying, quote, the opposing side ultimately failed to gain the trust of the Iranian delegation.
ABC News Chief White House Correspondent Mary Bruce reporting. Here in Utah, the Salt Lake County District Attorney will move on to the primaries after narrowly avoiding being knocked off the ballot.
District Attorney Sim Gill has held his post since 2010, and challenger Sean Robinson came close to ousting him at the weekend Salt Lake County Democratic Convention. Robinson needed 55% of votes to block Gill from the ballot, but he fell short with 53%. Robinson has said the current DA's office is understaffed, overworked, and has not been transparent with the public. Brianna Willis, KSL News Radio.
State Senator Kathleen Reeby made a big announcement at the convention, dropping out of the congressional race and throwing her support behind former U.S. Rep. Ben McAdams. Reeby was one of the first candidates to throw her name into the ring. Your money at this moment, the Dow down 287 points to 47,629. Coming up, we still got crashes affecting the drive lane, especially down in Utah County. We'll get an update of traffic and weather together coming up next. KSL News Time, 9:31.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Hi, this is Derek Overstreet, president of the New Millennium Group and co-host of Stop Working, Start Living with KSL News Radio. Can you imagine what your life would be like if you could retire 3 to 5 years earlier than you thought possible? The things you could do, the loved ones you could spend time with, the memories that you could create. That's what our team at the New Millennium Group does. We'll walk you through the entire process every step of the way. If you'd like to get a copy of the 5-step proprietary plan that will help you retire 3 to 5 years sooner than you thought possible, give us a shout right now. 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370 or utahsfinancialplanner.com. Listen, most of our listeners right now have a tax problem, not a money problem. There's not enough money in Social Security Medicare as it is. Let us show you how you can significantly reduce your taxes. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370 or utahsfinancialplanner.com.
It's spring. You get outside and it's obvious your house needs painting. Make an appointment with CertaPro Painters. They'll give you a free estimate quickly and at the right price. And they make the entire process easy with reliable updates and communication. They know how important your home is to you. True professionals, they're committed to quality and exceptional service at the right price. Each CertaPro Painters business is independently owned and operated, so schedule your free estimate online at CertaPro.com. That's Certa with a C.
The Children's Center Utah provides a unique service in our communities by meeting the needs of very young children and their caregivers. Here's another Little Minds Big Hope message from Dr. Jennifer Mitchell, the Children's Center Vice President of Clinical Strategy and Innovation.
Did you know when young children act out, they may be trying to communicate something they don't yet have the words for? Behavior is often a signal that a child needs support. Find out more at childrencenterutah.org.
If you don't care about saving 50% off your wireless bill for the same 5G coverage the big guys are charging a fortune for, maybe you care about keeping jobs in America. Pure Talk does. They've pledged to run their entire operation from this country, including all their customer service. Or maybe you care about our nation's veterans. Pure Talk does. They've donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to America's Warrior Partnership, a fantastic organization working hard to prevent veteran suicide. Or maybe you care about closing America's skills gap. Pure Talk does. They're a proud supporter of MicroWorks. They're helping my foundation train the next generation of skilled workers. Don't get me wrong. Saving money's great, and you'll save plenty with Pure Talk. But if you want to be in business with people who share your values, dial pound 250. Say micro, and switch to an American wireless company that actually stands for something. Pure Talk.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by UCCU. Build smart, save big with construction loans at UCCU. Let's go back to the traffic center in Cormac Bone.
Well, northbound I-15 is heavy and slow through Linden in Utah County right now. It's because there was a crash that was blocking multiple right lanes. It looks like they're just in the right shoulder there now. So it's heavy and slow just before you get to Pleasant Grove Boulevard. Otherwise, though, roadway's looking really good after the morning drive. A little bit of northbound I-15 delays in Draper approaching 123rd South. And in Lehigh, Pioneer Crossing, eastbound still bogged down with that construction. That starts as you approach 7800 West. I'm Cormac Bone in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather forecast today, partly cloudy, chance of rain showers. Tomorrow we'll get about the same, looking for the same high temp, which isn't even quite to 60 degrees, but we won't have the storms tomorrow that we might see today. Right now it is 43 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio. War in Iran.
Well, we're now learning that President Trump has said the U.S. military will be imposing their own blockade on the Strait of Hormuz as talks between the U.S. and Iran have fizzled over the weekend.
ABC News Chief Global Affairs Correspondent Martha Raddatz says Iran has already threatened to target U.S. ships in the area.
The U.S. military says the blockade will be enforced against vessels of all nations attempting to enter or exit Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. forces stress they will not impede the navigation of boats coming to or leaving from non-Iranian ports. It's not clear how the blockade will be enforced or whether ships moving within the strait will allow searches from the U.S. or, of course, whether any ships will even enter the strait. President Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth have said that the U.S. has obliterated Iran's Navy, but Iran has smaller, faster boats which can be equipped with weapons capable of hitting large vessels and are more difficult to track. Those boats and the suspected mining of the strait have given Iran control of this vital waterway for weeks now.
So this comes after peace talks have failed, and we actually have an expert with us, and I'm excited about this. We have Joe Khalil from News Nation. He's a senior congressional correspondent there. Thanks for joining us this morning, Joe.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So where do things stand today? We're blocking a strait that was already blocked?
Yeah. So what it seems counterintuitive, right? What this is ultimately going to do is sort of put the United States and Iran face to face in this sort of act of contrition to see who can withstand more economic pain and pinch. What Iran has done by closing the Strait of Hormuz is really put the U.S., the West, and Asia in this economic bind where 20% of the world's oil can no longer go to and from. So President Trump is trying to do the same kind of thing in a way that would punish ships that paid those tolls to Iran to pass the strait, and also ships that come from Iran and go to places like China, which is still buying Iranian oil. So the U.S. is trying to cut Iran's revenue, as Iran has already done. What that looks like exactly was pretty unclear because you just heard Martha Raddatz there. Central Command has said ships can pass through if they're not going to and from Iranian ports. But there are still mines in the strait, so it's a risk for any ship to come through at all. And it's unclear now what Iran does. Iran is continuing to block ships itself. So now you've got the situation where the U.S. and Iran are both trying to sort of siphon off travel through the waterway to punish the other. And again, it may just be who can withstand the more pain and the more economic pressure. Right now in the U.S., there are people looking at gas prices and unhappy with the war effort, unhappy it's impacting costs. At the same time, you've got Iran that is facing this military pressure from the United States.
Joe, as I understand it, the Iranian blockade and the American blockade are slightly different. They're blocking different ships for different reasons and coming out of different ports. Is that correct?
Yeah, the U.S. is specifically going after ships that have paid Iran a toll, which Iran has been charging ships to come through. So let's be clear. Before this war started, you had anywhere from 150 to 180 ships a day coming through, big, oil tankers and what have you. So now there are only a handful of ships that go through today and this past week, but all of them have gone through with Iran's blessing, which means Iran is making money and revenue off of what comes in and out. That's what the U.S. is trying to stop there. So that's why the U.S.'s blockade is a little bit more unique. Iran's blockade has just basically been en masse. It doesn't matter, what country benefits. Iran is just trying to choke off the entirety of the strait to really impact global markets and put economic pressure globally on the U.S., on its allies, on several other countries. So they're very different approaches, but ultimately they're trying to achieve the same thing, again, which is to really squeeze the other side financially to try to get them to do what they can't achieve militarily.
So, Joe, can you help us understand why those peace talks failed?
Yeah, it seems like Vice President Vance came out and said the U.S. has 3 or 4 hard-line positions that it will not back down from. One is that Iran give up its nuclear ambition, and they have what's called enriched uranium. This is the uranium that has already gone through the process and is essentially ready to be put into a nuclear weapon. So the U.S. wants Iran to give all of that uranium up and to make a commitment not to continue the process of enriching more uranium, which might lead to a nuclear weapon. The U.S. also says no conditions, no strings attached. You must reopen fully the Strait of Hormuz, and you've got to stop funding groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, which operate in different parts of the Middle East. These are proxies for the Iranian government that the U.S. has designated terrorist organizations. So basically, the vice president said those are 3 specific hard lines, and we're not even going to really begin these negotiations until these 3 main priorities are agreed upon. And simply the Iranian side has not agreed to the American demands. So there was 21 hours of discussion, but ultimately neither side could get to agree on those specifics. And we are now in this situation where there is technically still a ceasefire, but there's no permanent peace arrangement. And that ceasefire is very, very fragile at this moment.
Joe, we heard from at least one Iranian official who said something to the effect that the Americans will long for the day of $6 and $7 gallons of gas. Have we seen any response from the market on oil and gas prices yet in terms of what's going on here?
Yeah, we have. And unfortunately for Americans and for your listeners, the price of oil has shot up again today. It really has gone up and down and up and down. We're watching the $100 mark. It has increased beyond $100 a barrel again. There was some hope, and actually you saw the markets react almost immediately last week when their ceasefire was announced. The markets did well. The price of oil came down pretty significantly at the prospect that we may be close to an end, or at least there was progress toward that. And now that we've got, no progress in the cease talks over the weekend, and you've got the blockade announced by President Trump, the markets reacted almost immediately to that. We hope it reverses for the sake of everybody, and myself included, anyone who drives. But right now it's unfortunately going in the wrong direction. But that was entirely predictable, given the circumstances. And when you choke off oil supply and energy supply, this is a very predictable result of that.
Joe, we only have a few seconds, but are there any new peace talks on the calendar right now?
Nothing yet. But I will say both sides could have announced that there's an end to the ceasefire. They did not do that. So that at least leaves the door open that at some point, perhaps soon, there might be another round of peace talks. But as of right now, nothing is scheduled. Both sides are in this sort of limbo where we're just kind of waiting to see what plays out.
All right. Thanks so much. That was Joe Khalil, News Nation senior congressional correspondent on the war in Iran. And speaking about the war, Pope Leo said this: war divides, hope unites, arrogance tramples upon others, love lifts up. He's been really outspoken, and we wanted to know if this is common for religious leaders. We're going to talk with Sarah Weaver of the Deseret News when we come back after the break.
Hi, I'm Utah tax attorney Jordan Wilcox. When the IRS invades your life, it's never good news. Keep in mind, it's not just you.
I owed roughly $34,000.
$61,000. When the IRS first contacted me, I was horrified.
When they start hounding you and harassing you and assaulting you.
Don't face the IRS alone. With everything in your life at stake, don't trust just anyone.
From what I got told was being done in a matter of 2 years, he had done in a matter of like 48 hours.
It's a great thing to have the IRS off your back.
We have reduced our tax liability by over $42,000.
Once I signed on with Jordan, I never talked to the IRS again.
It changed our lives.
You need someone to fight for you. Visit endtaxworry.com and get relief today. Let's solve your tax problems now. Visit endtaxworry.com. That's endtaxworry.com.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and there's a good chance you've heard me talking about our free furnace sale. The one where you buy a new air conditioner and we give you a new furnace for just the cost to install it, about $400. Well, we still have a few more spots on our schedule we need to fill, so I'm extending the sale, but I'm not quite sure for how much longer. Definitely no later than April 30th, and once I think our schedule's full enough, I gotta pull these ads, so don't wait too long to call and schedule your free estimate. The main reason we do this sale is to give you an incentive to help us keep our guys busy when the weather's mild. And thanks to your help, we're able to keep our guys and keep growing. So if your furnace and air conditioner are ready to be replaced, you owe it to yourself to at least schedule a free estimate and get all the details about our free furnace sale. Just to recap, when you have Any Hour Services install a new air conditioner, we'll give you a new furnace for just the cost to install it. About $400. The furnace is free, you just pay the labor. If you think you might be interested, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Progressive's Accident Response can detect and send help when you need it most, after a major car accident. But other accidents, you're on your own. Like when you accidentally call your wife Mom. When you accidentally say Happy Holidays on someone's birthday. When you accidentally wave at someone you thought was waving at you. We can't help with those accidents, but Progressive's Accident Response provides peace of mind after major car accidents. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Limited availability in California. Driver is responsible for emergency and towing charges not covered by the policy.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. No, we're not one of the big guys. Truth is, we don't want to be. If you're over 50, Big Wireless probably has you paying for more data than you might need. You could be throwing away thousands over a lifetime.
Our entry-level data plans start at just $20 a month. And for a limited time, switch and get your second month free. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit consumercellular.com or a store near you and get your second month free today. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional details.
I'm back to doing what I love and more, thanks to the Good Feet store.
Does it feel like someone's stabbing a knife into your heel? Or does your lower back give you problems as the day goes on? The Good Feet store wants to help you like we helped Ann.
Every time I stood up, pain just shot up my legs. Fortunately, I found the Good Feet store. I went to them after my doctor diagnosed me with plantar fasciitis. And now, thanks to the Good Feet store, I'm 100%.
Wouldn't it be nice to get back to doing what you love, like Patrick did?
I was in constant pain. Somehow my fiance and I found our way into the Good Feet store. Put my foot on the arch support system. I put them in my shoes, my back, my knees, my ankles. Thank you. Thank you, everybody at the Good Feet store. You gave me my active life back.
Learn more or schedule an appointment at goodfeet.com and come in and get your free personalized fitting at The Good Feet Store. We have locations in Farmington, Riverton, and Sandy.
Thanks to the Good Feet Store.
Everything to my back is dark.
High in the alpine wilderness.
Really ugly clouds coming over from the north.
A place
the ridgeline is imposing the escarpments, the drops.
where survival,
It's dark now. I have nothing.
is never certain.
This is not good.
My name's Dave Cawley, and I'm the host of a podcast called Uinta Triangle. It's about the disappearance of an Australian hiker named Eric.
Our conclusion and that of the sheriff is that the mountains have decided to keep him.
Come retrace Eric's footprints with me.
You have done this walk too, but this is your backyard.
Did he really make a wrong turn, or did he decide that he was done?
He is not the first or last person to vanish in this remote region.
It was haunting to see the photos. I mean, really.
Find and follow the podcast series Uinta Triangle. That's Uinta, spelled U-I-N-T-A, Triangle, wherever you get your podcasts. All episodes out now.
Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed. Learn how at www.ready.gov. Brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Ad Council.
Inside Sources.
Well, Pope Leo has been quite outspoken against the war in Iran. President Trump has taken some issue with that, and the Pope did respond to questions this morning about the escalating criticism between he and President Trump.
I will continue to speak out loudly against war, looking to promote peace, promoting dialogue and multilateral relationships among the states to look for just solutions to problems.
So that was noisy, but that was Pope Leo as he's doing a tour, I think, in Africa right now. We have with us in studio Sarah Jane Weaver, editor of the Deseret News. And Sarah, I wanted to find out how common is this to have faith leaders not only call for peace, but really openly speaking out against the war?
Well, and you know, it's always great to be with you guys, but faith leaders' job is to speak to the things that they believe in. They regardless of what faith they represent, are called, if you will, to speak God's truth. And so it wouldn't be uncommon for a faith leader to speak out for the things they believe in, including promoting the peace that Jesus Christ promoted when he was on the earth.
So I know that Deseret Voices podcast with Jane Clayson Johnson just did, in fact, it was very timely, but just released a podcast with Father James Martin. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, so this is a prominent Jesuit priest who actually has the job to help Americans understand Catholicism better. And so he joined Deseret Voices podcast and was able to answer some questions because this issue that's been happening between the Pope and the President has been going on in the terms of tweets and posts. We saw the Pope speak out on Easter Sunday and call for peace. And so this podcast that was released last Friday hit some of these timely issues.
It seems like some of the question, I guess, to me is this, Sarah. A religious leader saying, I'm against war, as opposed to, I am opposed to this war. And I'm generalizing, but certainly a message of peace is great. But maybe the concern that people are having now is that the Pope seems to be focused on this particular conflict. And maybe it's just because it's the one that we're all following right now. Do you know what I mean? Just war in general is bad, but then I guess what's causing Trump such concern is he almost seems to be taking it as a personal attack against his war.
No, you'll see in this podcast, if you listen to it, Father James Martin points out that the Pope does not typically call out political leaders by name. Mm-hmm. And he said he did this in this case because reporters asked him directly about a specific situation, and Trump had actually said things that were specific to him. But in general, faith leaders try and promote faith without partisanship, without promoting one political party or another. without promoting political candidates. I think it's rare to see a faith leader say, vote for this person or don't vote for this person. And you actually didn't see the Pope do that. He didn't say, Americans don't vote for Trump.
Right.
He said, I believe that God wants me to say this and promote this principle.
What is the significance of an American Pope criticizing an American president?
Well, I think unlike under Pope Francis or Pope Benedict or Pope John Paul, people can't say he doesn't understand America. So it's really important to say that this is someone who understands the American scene, who understands American politics, but again, who is trying to be, a faith leader, not a political leader. And also, it's important to remember, Pope Leo rarely mentions politicians' names. He only mentioned that because people asked him directly. Usually, he's just talking about working for peace and reconciliation. So I think he's doing exactly what a Christian leader should do, which is to call for peace, like Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers."
So one of the questions then that you already brought up, Sarah, was the balance between being a faith leader and chiming in on politics, and they talked about that as well.
Do you think faith leaders generally should be more vocal on political issues relevant to their faith positions?
That's a good question. I think that they should be vocal, but I don't think they should be partisan. So I think it's one thing to say, we need to care for the poor. We need to care for people who are on the margins. We need to help the sick. We need to help the elderly, right? Those kinds of things. We need to help people who are starving. That's one thing. To say you should vote for this candidate or that candidate, you should vote for this party or that party, that's another thing. So I think that they should be faith leaders, not political leaders. That's a difficult tightrope to walk.
So one of the things that's interesting to me, Sarah, is that it continues to seem to escalate. So this morning, Pope Leo said he's not afraid of President Trump. And shortly after President Trump criticized Pope Leo yesterday, he posted an image of himself as Jesus Christ. He has since deleted that post, but the outrage and backlash has been pretty significant. Is there, where are we with religion and politics in the United States right now?
Well, isn't it interesting that Pope Leo came out and said, I don't have any fear of the Trump administration. He said, actually, my goal is to speak loudly of the messages of the gospel. So he's drawn a line in the sand and said, I'm going to speak about the things that I think God wants me to speak about. Now, the image that you talked about, of course, was offensive to Christians across the world, and so there are all kinds of questions. How does faith intersect with politics? And I think that's something that we're going to have to continue to grapple with as a society.
You know, I agree with you 100%. And I would say this: we often listen to our faith leaders on such political type issues as reproductive rights, same-sex marriage, and those have been things that we've almost taken for granted as part of a religious doctrine. War is, I don't know why war is sort of seen a little differently, and why this particular situation we're addressing now, because we expect our religious leaders to be able to weigh in on things without concern. I know this is kind of a rhetorical question, but I hope I'm making sense here, that we do have some political type rhetoric from our religious leaders.
Well, and this is why it's very important to draw a line between somebody speaking as a political leader representing a nation and somebody speaking as a faith leader. Because in politics, you take sides in war, right? You have one nation's interests, one nation's political interests, one nation's economic interests, one nation's land interests. And if you're a faith leader, you could never believe that God would want any human being to be harmed or suffer. And so you're praying for people on both sides of any conflict. And so it is very hard to draw a line in terms of war. Of course, the faith leader wants people to not suffer. Of course, he wants peace in the world. We all want that. And so So that is the key to this very, very difficult conversation is someone speaking in terms of their faith and their faith tradition and their leadership and their accountability to God, or are they speaking representing a nation or a people or a military action?
All right. Well, thanks again. You're always so available to us, and this is a little bit difficult subject to talk about, but you made it very clear. Hopefully, our listeners, listen to that.
Hopefully, our leaders listen
and
too.
Our listeners too. I wish Sarah was one of our leaders. Anyway, when we come back, tax day is only 2 days away. We're going to go through some common mistakes to avoid that could trigger an IRS audit. What to watch for, how to avoid it. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
10 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Andy Farnsworth. KSL's top story this hour. The Juab School District is welcoming students back to school this morning with precautions after confirming a case of the measles. The district says there will still be school this morning, and anyone with symptoms, Utah Health Department's Nicholas Rupp says, takes a few days for symptoms to look like measles.
You'll get a fever, cough, runny nose, red eyes, kind of typical cold-like symptoms. And then a few days after that, you'll come down with that telltale measles rash.
The case was announced on Saturday. They say the families of students who have had a significant risk of exposure have already been contacted. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The U.S. military is moving ships into position to enforce a blockade in the Strait of Hormuz for any ships leaving Iranian ports. This follows the breakdown of talks with Iran over the weekend.
After marathon talks between the U.S. and Iran failed to reach a deal this weekend, President Trump saying he doesn't care if they come back to the negotiating table or not.
I don't care if they come back or not. If they don't come back, I'm fine.
President Trump says the U.S. will blockade ships entering or exiting Iranian ports. Trump warning Tehran that any Iranian who fires at us or at peaceful vessels will be blown to hell.
ABC's Mary Bruce reporting. Someone in Paris will be the lucky owner of a Picasso original, and it will only run them about €100. One Picasso for €100 gives out about 120,000 tickets, but there's only one winner. It's the third time the company has done the raffle. That money will go towards the Alzheimer's Research Foundation. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 241 points to 47,675. Coming up, we dry out today. KSL Weather's next. KSL News Time, 10:01.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance tech at a university, he knows ordering from multiple suppliers takes time away from keeping their arena up and running. That's why he counts on Grainger to get everything he needs, from lighting and HVAC parts to plumbing supplies, all in one place. And with fast, dependable delivery, he's stocked and ready for the next tip-off. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Pump up the volume.
Business moves fast. Orders roll in, deadlines close in. When you ship with USPS Ground Advantage, you can keep up with confidence. Every package stays in our secure network from dock to door. And with nationwide reach, dependable tracking, and upfront affordable pricing, you get built-in peace of mind. You run the business. We run the routes. Visit USPS.com/Ground Advantage to learn more.
I'm Congressman Mike Kennedy. For years, Utah families have paid too much for health care, groceries, and everyday essentials. I'm fighting for health care reform that puts patients first and lowers costs. I'm also working to cut waste, fraud, and abuse in Washington because your tax dollars should be spent wisely. Fiscal responsibility means lower costs and a government that works for you. I'm Mike Kennedy, and I'll keep fighting for Utah families. Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
This is Nate Orchard from Advanced Window Products.
When you live in Utah, your windows do a lot more than let the light in. They protect your home from freezing winters, blazing summers, and everything in between. That's why Advanced Window Products builds every window for your local climate. No middleman, no out-of-state delays, just factory direct quality, custom made for your home. Imagine a quieter home, a warmer home, a cooler home. Our high-efficiency vinyl windows are engineered to lower your energy bills and boost your comfort all year round. And installation is done by our own certified in-house crews, never subcontractors. That's why Utah homeowners give us 5-star reviews. Right now, take advantage of our anniversary sale. For a limited time, get $2,500 off when you buy 10 or more windows. Call 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. For 40 years, Advanced Window Products has been the name Utah trusts for custom replacement windows and sliding glass doors. Advanced Window Products, built here, installed here, trusted here. Call 801-850-9100 for that $2,500 off or visit us at advancedwindows.com to schedule your free in-home estimate.
The Children's Center Utah provides a unique service in our communities by meeting the needs of very young children and their caregivers. Here's another Little Minds Big Hope message from Dr. Jennifer Mitchell, the Children's Center Vice President of Clinical Strategy and Innovation.
Did you know early mental health support can change the course of a child's life? The earlier children get help, the better their long-term outcomes can be. Find out more at childrencenterutah.org.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by UCCU. Build smart, save big. UCCU. Love where you bank. Here's Cormac Bone.
Crews have northbound I-15 closed in Linden as they work on cleaning out the debris from the roadway. The crash is still there blocking that right shoulder, but it looks like they'll hopefully open those lanes right back up as they clean off the road there. So it is really stopped traffic just before Pleasant Grove Boulevard on northbound I-15. And we also have residual delays on northbound I-15 coming down the hill from Point of the Mountain and around Bangerter Highway. There was a crash there, and it has since cleared off the road, so hopefully those delays clear out. Otherwise, it's construction giving drivers the worst. Eastbound Pioneer Crossing just after 7800 West and reaching over to I-15. I'm Cormac Bone in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Salt Lake City should see a high of 59 today and tomorrow. Then it jumps up to 68 and windy on Wednesday, ahead of our next storm moving in Thursday. That storm will last into Friday morning. It could get cold enough that we could even see a bit of snow on the valley floor, believe it or not. 47 degrees and partly cloudy in Salt Lake City right now. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
Well, April 15th is just 2 days away, and that is tax day in the United States. And I just have to say this. I saw this morning in the Wall Street Journal, America's new tax mantra, quote, "The IRS isn't going to catch me." Right. So I'm not sure that's a great tax plan.
No, it's
to
not.
be honest. So we actually have some key tips on how to avoid being audited by the IRS. Have you ever been audited?
I have not. I had sort of a tangential type audit when I was seeking a refund after something that they just brought me in and said, "Hey, what's up with this?"
Yeah,
I said,
yeah.
My
accountant
did it wrong. And they said, "Okay."
Well, I have an audit story. It's more than one audit. So when we did our international adoptions, there was a Utah tax credit for adoption, and there was a federal tax credit, and I can't even remember if they overlapped or not. But for like 6 years, I was audited 5 times out of 6 years because of our adoption tax credits. And we were meticulous in record keeping because we knew that was a possibility. That was a huge red flag for the IRS to claim that credit. So we documented every penny we spent, literally. And they're like, okay, fine, you're fine. When we sent them all the receipts.
Good job. Well, we have with us this morning Susan Spears, licensed CPA and CEO of the Utah Association of CPAs. Susan, thanks for joining us this morning.
Oh, always good to come over and help everyone out on their taxes.
So I've been lucky. I haven't been audited. And I guess this is probably sound dumb, but it seems like the IRS has been downsized to the point where maybe they don't have much time to do audits, but they're still doing them, correct?
Well, they're still doing them. And it's kind of interesting, the comment that Holly just made, because, you know, historically it's been like 0.5% of returns are being audited. However, the IRS is ramping up their audits. and they're becoming more targeted in how those audits are, where they're going to audit. So we're not out of the woods on this.
So can you just tell our listeners from a 30,000-foot view, what kind of things trigger an IRS audit? What's a red flag?
Well, I think from the 30,000-foot view, and boy, we could get as granular as you wanted, but I think, let's look at W-2s that don't match the information provided by employers. That's kind of a biggie. If we have a fairly high amount of earned income tax credits, earned income tax credit returns are quite often audited. But it's like 4 times more than the usual type audit because there's so much fraud. If you're missing Social Security numbers or if Social Security numbers are incorrect, you might get a little correspondence audit notice. Income from 1099s that aren't reported, and it's more than just interest or dividend income. Think about, we have a lot of people that are doing side hustles to bring in extra money. So they're getting these 1099s. They may discard them or just not worry about them. And then now with the 1099Ks being distributed, I think a lot of people just don't know what to do with them.
Susan, when you do the taxes for a client, let's say it's a business client, how much information are you allowed to access from the IRS in terms of W-2s, that type of thing, or do you have to get virtually everything from your clients?
We pretty much, tax preparers, we'll pretty much get everything from our client. That's going to be a lot more quickly than trying to get it from the IRS, but your employer's going to give you a W-2, the banks, your brokerage houses, they're going to give you the 1099s. If you're doing subcontract work, whomever you're doing that work for is responsible for issuing you a 1099. And even if you don't receive a 1099, you're still responsible for reporting that income.
So what kind of tips do you have for taxpayers who are maybe just getting ready to file this week? You already mentioned mismatching info. What else should taxpayers be on the lookout for?
I think make sure that you can document everything that you're reporting on your return. We talk about revenue, all the income you're bringing in, but if you're reporting on a business, make sure that you can document your business expenses. Don't just estimate. Kind of as a red flag, if you're estimating expenses on a tax return and those expenses end in 5s or 0s, there's a chance you might get audited.
Susan, I'm asking for a friend this next question, but let's say you owe a bit. And where's the cost benefit to, say, accessing a CD that hasn't matured yet or borrowing some money as opposed to filing late? I mean, and I know that's maybe an unfair question, but are the fees and penalties with the IRS just not worth it, that you encourage people to get what they need to pay so that they could get it paid on time?
I would always say do what you can do to pay your taxes on time. Regardless of whether you file an extension for April 15th to extend filing your return, the tax is due on April 15th. So, if you need to break into a CD and, I don't know right off what those penalties are, it could be a lot less than having to pay failure to pay penalties and interest with the IRS.
So I do have a question for you. If somebody were to get audited, what does that look like? Are they going to get a phone call? Are they going to get a text message? What happens if you get audited?
So you will never receive a phone call or a text message if you're being audited. The IRS will send you a letter via snail mail. And typically they do what's called correspondence audits. So they'll ask for specific information. We'd like you to document your charitable contributions. That's kind of a biggie. So you're going to send in the documentation that you reported those charitable donations in, or whatever it is, or we'd like you to verify vehicle mileage, Or they may send you a letter that says, we have records that you received X amount from so-and-so and you didn't report this W-2. So, and sometimes that's just stuff that you miss or you forget. So you respond to that correspondence audit. And it never hurts to ask a CPA for help on this. Because it's not the letter that you expect to get in the mail every day.
Susan, unfortunately, we've only got about 30 seconds, but could you tell our listeners anything that came out of the One Big Beautiful Bill that might be a shock or a surprise or a change from what we've been doing in the past?
30 seconds. Oh, geez.
Sorry.
Well, for our seniors, remember the extra $6,000 deduction if you're 65 or older. Remember the overtime, the tips adjustments that you can take. Ask the questions. If you're not sure, certainly call a CPA and ask us. We're happy to help you out.
All right. Thank you so much.
And she did that within 30 seconds. Well, when we come back, the Department of Homeland Security paid $145 million for an ICE facility here in Salt Lake City, but they only apparently own half the land. We'll learn more about what that means from KSL TV's Garna Bahia after the break.
Running a small business means juggling a lot. Your network has to handle it all. That's where a fiber-only provider falls short. You need a partner who gives you a greater advantage. Introducing the Total Solutions Advantage only from Comcast Business. A first-ever combination of the largest, fastest fiber-powered network, the most reliable Wi-Fi, gig speeds with equipment and security included, and a 5-year price lock. Plus, it's all backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. The Total Solutions Advantage only from Comcast Business. A new standard for small business with reliability, security, and savings in one. Switch today. Get started with a great offer as low as $60 a month. When you add it all up, no one does business like Comcast Business.
Offer ends 6/1/26. New customers only. Requires 300 megabits per second internet and security edge. 1-year agreement, EcoBill, and autopay required. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra. Most reliable Wi-Fi based on Open Signal Awards USA Fixed Broadband Experience Report, May 2025.
Is your financial advisor managing your risk or just a spreadsheet? Hi, I'm Jeff Jr., founder of Trajan Wealth. Many financial advisors rely on target date funds, which are one-size-fits-all portfolios that don't know your name, your family, or your goals. And that passive management can leave you dangerously exposed. At Trajan, we look at the whole picture, not just the stocks everyone else buys, but the private market opportunities most advisors ignore. And as fiduciaries, we build a strategy around you, coordinating your investments, tax strategy, and estate into one cohesive plan. Your financial life deserves more than just a generic portfolio. Real planning isn't a stack of statements. It's the confidence of knowing where your income will come from for the next 30 years. Good enough isn't good enough for your family. It's time for a change. Schedule your complimentary consultation today.
Call Trajan today at 801-207-9900. That's 801-207-9900.
Advisory services through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Private equity investments require accreditation. Other services through Trajan Estate and Trajan Tax. Additional disclosures at TrajanWealth.com.
Every day here in Utah, people turn to KSL News Radio for one simple reason: trust. Trust for our reporters, hosts, our coverage, and trust in the businesses heard right here. I've met so many of our listeners over the years, and they'll tell you KSL is part of their daily routine, in the car, at work, at home. And when they hear your business here, it carries the weight of that trust. It isn't just another ad. It's a recommendation coming from a reliable source. When you advertise on KSL News Radio, you reach a loyal, highly engaged audience who listens intentionally. They show up for breaking news, accurate information, and meaningful conversations. And because of that connection, they respond. And when you pair our on-air credibility with digital tools like display advertising, social media, streaming audio, search, geo-targeting, and retargeting, you get a full funnel strategy that works and reaches the right people at the right time. Get marketing that truly moves the needle. Partner with the voice Utah trusts. KSL. Learn more at kslnewsradio.com/advertise.
You could file your taxes on a basic free service, which is fine. But are you okay with fine? Because when it's your money on the line, do you really want to guess if you missed a credit or hope the math is right? Get the confidence of TurboTax for free right on the Intuit Credit Karma app. Free Fed and free state for simple 1040s only. Around 37% of filers qualify. See details at turbotax.com/free. No schedules except for EITC, CTC, student loan interest, and Schedule 1A.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. No, we're not one of the big guys. Truth is, we don't want to be. If you're over 50, Big Wireless probably has you paying for more data than you might need. You could be throwing away thousands over a lifetime.
Our entry-level data plans start at just $20 a month. And for a limited time, switch and get your second month free. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit consumercellular.com or a store near you and get your second month free today. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional details.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Stolen Voices of Dole Valley, a gripping new 9-part investigative podcast about a serial killer you've probably never heard of, Warren Forrest, a sadistic predator who prowled the Pacific Northwest in the early 70s. He hid behind the deeds of Ted Bundy, and he's only been convicted of 2 murders, but is suspected of many more. Since the release of Stolen Voices of Dole Valley, a witness identified in the podcast could lead investigators to the remains of Jamie Grissom.
He ran into the woods. He said he stumbled, and as he fell down, he looks up and sees the body of a young woman.
And now the FBI is testing forensic evidence that had been collecting dust for decades. This cold case is now red hot. Binge the entire season of Stolen Voices of Dole Valley right now, wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the latest breaking news.
And expanded Inside Sources.
Well, we've been talking about the land purchased by the Department of Homeland Security in Salt Lake City. They paid $145 million for a tract of land that they thought
with a warehouse
they thought was 47 acres. It turns out maybe they didn't buy all of the land underneath the warehouse,
which is a really interesting twist that I did not anticipate. So to give us some more insight, we have Garna Mejia from KSL 5 TV. Garna, thank you so much for looking into this. Can you tell us what we know about purchasing only half the land?
Yeah, you guys. So I think we're all familiar with, I'm assuming that most of us are familiar. We've all been reporting about this 24.93 acre purchase with this 800,000 plus square foot warehouse that DHS recently purchased over on Salt Lake City's west side. And we've all been talking about this, but in checking in with the county assessor's office and the county recorder's office, what we're learning is that this warehouse actually sits on 2 parcels. And so the only deed that has been recorded with, county officials is for 24.93 acres with a warehouse. But there's a whole other parcel of 21 acres that has no change of ownership. So essentially, DHS owns the warehouse and they own 24 acres, but the other 21 acres that the warehouse sits on are still under the previous ownership.
Oh, gosh.
So, Garna, how could this have happened, especially when you're talking about a $145 million purchase? It seemed like there would have been title companies, appraisers, lenders. I mean, do we know yet how this happened?
That seems to be the key question at this point. In speaking with the recorder's office, with the county assessor, everyone seems to just be scratching their heads saying, we got this deed that came in, but it's literally for only half of the land that this facility sits on. And so that has all sorts of ramifications. First of all, the county assessor says, hey, at $145 million, this property with both parcels and the warehouse was assessed at $114 million. So he says, I think it's a little high. I can't say that for sure because I don't have, the purchase and what the deal was. I don't have that insider information. But yeah, I think it's higher than market value. So if DHS only owns half of the land, then that's an even bigger expense, than what it's really worth. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is in terms of property taxes. So this property was bringing in about $1 million a year in property taxes when you look at both parcels combined. If it transfers over to federal ownership, what that means, it is now exempt from property taxes. And so the assessor says, if all of it belongs to the federal government, then all of it is now exempt. But if only half of the land belongs to the federal government, then the other half, the privately owned side, is still going to be accountable for half of those that income, those property taxes, so about $500,000. So it has all sorts of implications. Then, there's the greater, broader thing of what are ICE's plans? Are they only going to be able to use half of the warehouse because technically the other half is private property? What happens there? That's what we're all trying to understand.
Well, right. And how would that even happen? Would they have to put a wall up inside anyway and say we can only go this far?
Yeah, and the deed I have here, what they purchased, it talks about the warehouse. So it's like, so they own the warehouse, but you can't step on it because it's private property. You just don't know what that's going to look like, and what the assessor said, he's like, in my opinion, he's like, I think the intention was to buy all of it. They maybe just didn't realize that this sits on two parcels. And, whoever sold it to them either didn't bring it up or didn't think to bring it up. We know they're connected to Deutsche Bank, but it's kind of like this shell company, and you go up a few layers to get back to DWS Group and Deutsche Bank. But yeah, what does this really mean? That seems to be the $1 million question here, or $145 million question.
Right. Garner, when DHS bought the land, were both parcels owned by the same entity? And if so, it seemed like it'd be a fairly easy fix to just have them deed the property over.
Exactly. So that's kind of what the assessor says, is it is not uncommon for his office to see a property where, the house, or building or whatever sits on two parcels. That's fairly normal when it's owned by the same owner. But he's never really had a case like this where one half is owned by one person and the other half is owned by another person. And then the building straddles exactly, sits right smack in the middle of it all. He's never seen anything like that. So he's expecting, he's put in calls, we've put in calls. Everyone's trying to figure out, was there an oopsie daisy here somewhere? Was there a slip up, or is this intentional? And if so, what's the plan?
Mm-hmm. Do you have any information about where things stand with this facility? I know Salt Lake City is saying, look, that we don't have the infrastructure out there. Where are we with this building?
I think just as we talked about at the beginning, this certainly is a plot twist that they're going to have to figure out, and decide what they're going to do between DHS and the private property owner, or maybe the title company. We don't know. We've reached out to everyone. So I think that's the first thing. The other thing that we've heard is that the new DHS secretary, they've put out the statement. They've only sent us 2 statements. And by they, I'm talking about the Department of Homeland Security. So all they've said is they've gone back to the board as they're kind of reviewing everything. There's been certainly not just in Salt Lake, but several other cities where they've purchased warehouses have kind of seen issues and things come up, or concerns that they overpaid for those facilities. So what we heard from, I spoke on Friday with the Immigration Review Council, and they talked about how, they're seeing that and they hear that, and it's not uncommon when you have a change of leadership in the administration for them to kind of go back and review things. But there seems to be no signal that they are going to pause or stop this plan. Now, that could happen, but at this point, at least one organization feels that there's no signal that is going to change.
Garner, if in fact the property was assessed or appraised at $114 million, do we have any idea why Department of Homeland Security paid over $31 million more than that? It seems like that would have been a fairly easy thing to figure out.
No, we don't know why they overpaid, right? Those are Utah, a purchase contract, that's private, so it would be hard for us to get information on exactly what the deal was. Maybe, one thought is maybe, there was the deal to retrofit it, and that was kind of built into that purchase price. We don't know. That doesn't seem to be what we're seeing in other cities, where they're just buying those warehouses and they're just paying a little bit more. So no, we don't know what the motivation for that was. What I can tell you, something else that was interesting from the assessor's office and recorder's office, is they say that it is really rare to see, the deed for that one parcel says it was $145 million cash in hand paid. So that we don't see that very often. That's pretty unique too, that it was a cash in hand kind of a purchase.
Wow, that is so interesting.
That's sad because, and thank you for joining us this morning. That was Garna Mejia from KSL TV. But we've learned, the more and more we learn about this particular piece of property, the more troublesome it becomes.
Well, it seems like it wasn't even thought out.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. Who decided from Department of Homeland Security that this was a good idea? I mean, we have zoning issues, we have water issues, we have sewer and other issues, and now, and we know that they overpaid for it right at the outset, and now they may have overpaid for
they
half
don't even
of it.
own
They
the
don't
whole
even
thing.
own the whole thing. I mean, somebody ought to, I don't know.
They must have had that $145 million burning a hole in their pocket because it was cash, right? And maybe somebody was just saying, "Hey, here, go spend this." I don't know,
right?
But it sure seems like it wasn't well thought out.
Yeah, and a lot of what was going on with Department of Homeland Security at that period of time wasn't very well thought out. But $145 million is just, I mean, taxpayer money that just went down. At least $30 million of that, plus who knows whatever else we've overpaid, is just a real, I don't know. Yuck. A lot of money. Well, you remember the discussions around President Trump's profanity-laced post. I think that was on Easter Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of concern, a lot of questions, a lot of people talking about, boy, is this the kind of thing that's appropriate? And what kind of language is appropriate? Well, we're going to be joined by Jay Evenson with the Deseret News to talk about this when we come back.
10:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Andy Farnsworth. KSL's top story this hour. A Springville man now in police custody accused of killing his mother and another man who've been missing for weeks. Sarah Johnson as well as John Handricks haven't been seen since March 20th, and police say there's evidence to suggest they were shot. 28-year-old Matthew Jacob Leonard has been booked into jail on suspicion of aggravated murder and obstruction of justice. Police are asking he be held without bail. A section of the Jordan River Parkway Trail will be closed for about a month as crews work on a new east-west freeway along 2100 North in Lehigh. The trail just under 2100 North will be closed, and UDOT crews created a detour route in the area. It'll go up and run parallel to 1200 North and cut over 2300 West. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Interest rates creeping up and a shrinking supply of affordable houses drove down existing home sales last month.
The figures suggest an overarching uneasiness on the part of would-be homebuyers to sign on the dotted line. The labor market has seen payrolls decline in 6 of the last 15 months, and interest rates, which had been falling to start the year, are on the rise again. The 3.98 million existing homes sold last month are the fewest since June of last year.
ABC's Jim Ryan reporting. Your money at this moment, the Dow down 78 points to 47,835. And just for information, oil still trading at $102 a barrel. Coming up, we got one storm moving out, another one getting ready to move in. We'll check weather and your traffic next. KSL News Time, 10:31.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
I'm back to doing what I love and more, thanks to the Good Feet store.
Do you want to walk, play pickleball, and enjoy other fun activities to stay healthy, but you can't because of bad feet? Hi, this is Mike, and the Good Feet store wants to help.
I just had difficulty walking. I tried them on in the store, and my foot felt so much better.
Do you keep buying new shoes and inserts with little or no relief?
I tried all kinds of shoes. It was the arch supports that made the difference from the Good Feet store.
Don't let bad feet, knees, or back problems get in the way of staying healthy and having fun.
Thanks to the Good Feet store, I bowl in 3 nights a week.
Get back to doing what you love. At the Good Feet store, we'll personally fit you with high-quality arch supports to maximize your comfort. Stop in the Good Feet store or book your free fitting at goodfeet.com. We have locations in Farmington, Riverton, and Sandy.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
Oil isn't the only resource hit hard by global events. American farmers are sounding the alarm by fertilizer prices at planting season. Will this disrupt our food supply? Raising prices cause shortages? I'm not waiting to find out, and neither should you. Go to mypatriotsupply.com, get a 3-month emergency food supply. They'll include $200 worth of extra survival protein absolutely free. After serving more than 3 million American families since 2008, you can trust mypatriotsupply.com. Go to mypatriotsupply.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
ZipRecruiter. Are you thinking about buying medicine online? A search for online pharmacies yields more than 20 million results. But which ones can you trust? Medicines bought from unlicensed online pharmacies can be dangerous. You may get a fake drug, your condition may get worse, or you may experience a bad reaction. Don't put your health at risk. To learn how to find an online pharmacy that's safe and legal, visit fda.gov/BeSafeRx. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by UCCU. Earn 4.24% on savings at UCCU.com. Let's go back to the traffic center and check in with Cormac Bone.
The crash that we had on I-15 in Linden has cleared off the road, and so have the delays. And we also had a crash in Draper. That's also gone. And so it's once again a delay-free drive on I-15 from Provo, really all the way up to Ogden, where we do have delays still. That's due to construction. A touch of eastbound slowing on 2100 North in Lehigh. Really, it's scattered delays from Redwood Road over to I-15. And then in Provo, we've got heavier delays in the construction zone on South University Avenue, both directions approaching 920 South. Common Spirit hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advanced healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with human kindness is here. Hello, human kindness. Cormac Bone in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, looking at a weekend storm moving out today. We should stay dry until Thursday. A cold front, though, bringing rain, possibly turning to snow early Friday morning. Right now it's 47 degrees and partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
You know, I almost feel like sometimes I lead a double life in terms of language. When I'm practicing law and I go to a jail, you hear the most vulgar, constant conversations all the time. But when we're here in the studio, there are certain things you just absolutely cannot and will not say. And so even when I'm talking to friends and family, there are certain words that they're just, to me, inappropriate. And so I look at what happened Easter Sunday and you think, ugh.
Is it even effective, right? I mean, we've talked about this, but the post that President Trump made Easter Sunday, like 6 o'clock our time. So he said this, Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day all wrapped up in one in Iran, adding, open the blank straight, you crazy blank, or you'll be living in blank. Just watch. So that, like, happy Easter to you too, Mr. President.
Right.
But really, I think it speaks to the office. And, you know, we always have people who have some kind of comment about, well, you hear worse at the jail, to your point, or you hear worse at the high school. That doesn't make it right coming from the President of the United States. Yeah. So we have with us on the line Jay Evenson, Deseret News Opinion Editor. Thanks, Jay.
Hi, it's good to talk to you again.
It's good.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's good to have you back.
Good to talk to you too.
Well, thank you. I think it's important to keep things a little bit in perspective. President Trump is not the first president to use foul language. I remember when the Nixon tapes came out in the 1970s, and they covered up the language by just saying an expletive deleted. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yes.
And so we had to kind of use our own imagination. But I remember people being shocked that a president would use that kind of language. And then a few years ago, those deleted expletives were put back in, and people got to hear what he had actually said. And there was sort of this round of shock then as well. But through the years, we've had several presidents who've said things. Barack Obama said some things about Mitt Romney where he used a well-known expletive term. And of course, Joe Biden would occasionally let some things slip. So it's not new, but I think there are a couple of real concerns that we have here. One is that it becomes a distraction. So the words draw more attention to themselves than what the point really is. And so when you're talking about trying to get Iran to open up the Strait of Hormuz, that becomes lost a little bit in how you deliver that message. And it's instead of emphasizing your point, it actually weakens your point. The second thing is how effective this becomes over time. We live in a completely different world than we did when Nixon was president. And we hear so much more profanity now on a daily basis in our media and just in everyday life. Pretty soon, those words become to mean very little, and they don't have any effectiveness as they might if they were rare. And there's a third problem, too, and that is that Democrats are watching what's going on, and they see that the president doesn't really suffer much politically by using that kind of language. So a lot of them are beginning to adopt that language, too, because they want to seem tough and they want to seem like they are not one step behind a president who's popular in certain circles. And so we end up with this sort of general coarsening of the language, which I think when it comes from the top, from the man in the White House, has a great effect on how we speak in everyday language and what we find acceptable and unacceptable.
I would say this, Jay, and I appreciate what you said. I agree with you. The Nixon tapes were conversations between he and his cabinet and he and his lawyers and they weren't for public consumption. And I think what was troublesome to people, including myself, and I've heard the worst, was Trump's profanity-laced post, which was broadcast to all of humanity. I mean, it wasn't like, and we've heard him say some things before when he was upset at the I think the Israelis for not getting along with the Iranians at one point. I don't remember what it was, and he would just say things that were right out there, right out in the open, instead of what he would say behind closed doors. To me, I guess that does make a difference, Jay.
It is a difference. You know, Nixon famously said he wasn't the first president to swear in the Oval Office. He was just the first one stupid enough to actually record it. But you'd like to hope that whoever is the president is very strategic in how they use language. I would argue that this Easter post was more of a distraction than anything else, because you look at what happened, and certainly the Iranians didn't open the Strait of Hormuz because of that language. So it appeared to be very ineffective as well.
So I wonder if you could just talk briefly about the speak softly, carry a big stick approach to foreign policy.
Yeah, so in the piece we quote President Theodore Roosevelt, who actually once said that he couldn't understand why people would use profanity in public discourse, because the English language is such a rich and boundless resource for expressing thoughts and ideas. The quote is, "Why curse when there is such a magnificent language with which to discourse?" And he, I look at Teddy Roosevelt, and I think he's probably more like Donald Trump than a lot of presidents that we had, because he was brash and he would often act impulsively. He took the entire U.S. battle fleet and sent them around the world in a sort of show of strength to the rest of the world and tried to get Japan to back down. They were being belligerent at that time. And but his whole philosophy was to speak softly and carry a big stick. In other words, if you have, if you have real power, then you don't need to use that kind of language. You don't need to boast about it. You show the rest of the world what you have, and then you speak softly, and you're very careful in how you use that power. But you don't have to do a lot of bragging, because the rest of the world respects you because they see just how powerful you are.
And I couldn't agree with you more, Jay. In terms of the use of language, there are so many things and so many ways you can express something without going down the potty mouth road, because to me, it almost seems like a weakness in terms of your ability to communicate.
Well, I mean, you and I probably around the same generation. We had teachers. I remember a teacher saying, that you swear because you lack the vocabulary needed to express your thoughts.
Right.
And so you need to develop that vocabulary, because really just about every swear word is completely irrelevant to the situation in which it's used. I mean, it means something completely different. It's just thrown in there for some kind of artificial emphasis, which really doesn't emphasize anything at all. If you've heard people really use the English language, people like Winston Churchill, to great effect without using swear words, you can understand the power that is in the English language and how we should use it.
All right. Thanks so much. That was Jay Evenson, Deseret News opinion editor. And we have some breaking news.
Oh, yes.
So the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has announced the dates of the Salt Lake Temple open house next year. It will run from April 5th, 2027 through October 1st, 2027. And reservations for that open house will be open on September 1st.
That's really interesting. And that's something we kind of had a little inclination about earlier, but we couldn't break it. But that's fascinating. I think we're going to have a lot more information about that as time goes.
There is actually one other piece of this that struck me. I think maybe it was last week or the week before. They also said that this will be the first temple open house that will run 7 days a week. So it will also be open on Sunday. And they anticipate, if you remember, some 3 million visitors in that 6-month period.
Wow. Good for them.
All right, when we come back, we want to talk about where artificial intelligence fits within police work. So detectives are reportedly testing out using AI as a tool, but the courts aren't sure what to do with it. We're going to talk about that when we come back after this break.
My friend Joey loves to use old familiar sayings.
You know what they say.
The problem is,
don't look at a gift horse, because you can't make them drink.
He gets a lot of them mixed up.
People who live in glass houses,
here it comes,
shouldn't cry over spilt milk.
There are also a lot of sayings in the financial world, like, you'll pay lower taxes in retirement. But for many people, it's just not true. You may have done a great job saving in that 401k or IRA, but Uncle Sam is ready to grab a big portion of that money. The team at Galileo Wealth Management can help with strategies that you can start now to lower your tax bill in the future. More for you and less for Uncle Sam.
Or as they say, an apple a day is worth 2 in the bush.
Get the facts on your tax bill in retirement. Call Galileo Wealth today at 385-247-7000. It's 385-247-7000 or online at GalileoWealth.com.
And remember, a stitch in time keeps the doctor away. It does, you know.
More than 50 million Americans suffer from a form of mental illness.
And Utah isn't immune, with nearly 1 in 3 people dealing with anxiety, depression, or another form of mental illness.
But there's hope. We can all take action to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe.
That's why KSL has teamed with the Huntsman Mental Health Foundation to bring you hope and help you thrive.
It's Healthy Mind Matters.
Find out more at healthymindmatters.com.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
Are you stuck staring at your W-2? Are tax refund worries holding you back? You probably have FOMO, the fear of messing up. The fix? Using TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They find every credit and deduction to help you get every refund dollar you deserve, or your money back. It's time to overcome your fear of messing up and get your taxes done right. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
multi-billion-dollar settlement is paying claims for up to 21 years. If you were exposed to weed killers at work or at home, your rights are affected. If you or your family has or had non-Hodgkin lymphoma, you could receive $6,000 to $165,000 or more. This settlement impacts you even if you're not sick, because this blood cancer can take 10 to 15 years to appear. If you stay in the settlement, you give up your right to sue. Learn more at weedkillerclass.com or call 888-403-8201. Paid for by the Roundup Settlement.
911, tell me exactly what happened.
My son and his wife and their 2 children haven't responded.
Susan Powell disappeared on a snowy morning in 2009.
And I said, Josh, where are you? You need to get home.
And her husband will never be held accountable.
Your wife is missing, Josh.
Yeah, but
And you want to think about it for a couple of days?
I'd had this overwhelming feeling that he had done something to her already.
I'm Dave Cawley, host of the podcast Cold.
Then he starts making phone calls to Susan's phone.
Hello, Susan. We are on our way back.
It's the deepest of deep dives into this tragic tale of abuse.
Where was Josh when Susan disappeared?
I don't know. Of one mother's desperate attempt to escape.
This is me, covering all my bases.
Help prevent it from happening again.
Our focus has and continues to be finding Susan.
Listen and learn by following Cold wherever you get your podcasts.
Every 2 minutes, an American is sexually assaulted. The majority of victims know their attacker. It could be your friend, your neighbor, or someone you met at a party. If you said no, it's rape, and it's a crime. This is Christina Ricci with RAINN. Call the National Sexual Assault Hotline today at 1-800-656-HOPE or visit rainn.org. That's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAINN and this station. And expanded Inside Sources. Inside Sources.
We continue to discuss ways that artificial intelligence is used in different aspects than we've ever thought before. And one thing we're talking about today is, should artificial intelligence be used in police work? Oklahoma City Police Department is using something called LongEye, which is a closed source artificial intelligence tool to help streamline detective work. Questions about it have arisen, and one of those questions is, at what point do you need to disclose that to the defense attorneys that you're using artificial intelligence in your investigation?
You know, it's interesting. So from the Washington Post article on this, they give the example of a detective who was spending 20 or so hours a week monitoring jail calls. They have reduced that to less than 5 hours. And a sex crime investigator used LongEye to translate 10 suspect phone calls into English and found a confession that turned a child rape case headed for trial into a likely plea agreement.
Yeah, so there's the debate as to when it could be used, when it should be used. And so to help us talk about this, and really one of the experts, that one of the finest police officers I ever know is Chris Burbank, former chief of Salt Lake City Police, joining us this morning. Chris, how are you? I haven't talked to you in a while.
It has been a while. Thank you for the introduction. Happy to be here.
Good. Hey, so I know that this is a technology that you would not have used, but where do you see it in the future, artificial intelligence, in terms of helping or maybe not helping police?
Well, interestingly enough, this is what I'm working on right now. This is kind of where my life has morphed into. And AI and all police technology, historically, we've gone, does it work? And in most cases, we talk about radios in cars, tasers. Yes, it works. AI, it works. But we don't ask the policy question of how are we going to maintain trust with the public, and what is the consequence, the impact upon the public that we serve? We don't ask that. We just say, oh, this is really cool and it works well. And so we're missing sometimes. And I think now that policy discussion, okay, is this what we should do as opposed to what we can do?
I think that's a really good point, Chris. And I wanted to ask this because just as you said that, it makes me think how it doesn't feel like it would be a very big leap to go from using AI in detective work to moving to using AI in citizen surveillance, which then I think brings up all kinds of concerns.
Well, it's already headed that way. And yes, it does bring up a lot of concerns. And you asked the question, coming into this, is should we disclose this? And absolutely, I'm a believer, no matter where you use AI or any other police technology, it should be disclosed to all parties involved in this, whether that's the public, the defense attorney, or prosecuting attorneys.
Chief, you and I have both been involved in cases that involved a ton of paperwork, interviews, and it does seem like there is a place and a time when we can plug this information into an artificial intelligence model and say, okay, give us information that relates to this and that. But I'm always sort of thinking back on the old trust but verify. You can get goods out of artificial intelligence, but it seems like you've got to do your own homework and make sure that what you're getting is accurate.
Well, one of the things that I've really been working on as far as policy goes is, yes, AI will reduce the workload that a police officer or detective may have. But more importantly, what I want is I want AI to tell me those 10 great things that I focus on, and then I have a human resource look at it, as opposed to just giving me the answer. Because not always will that be the right answer, depending on the criteria that you ask the question of AI.
Right. So my concern, of course, when we know that AI can, quote unquote, hallucinate, right? That's what they call it, when AI just makes stuff up. How much of a concern is that for you?
Well, it's a tremendous concern. And one of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand, and quite frankly, I didn't when I started down this road of AI in policing, is you can teach AI. And so this notion that it just gathers everything wildly and throws you an answer, yeah, that can be, but we can teach and focus and say, okay, this is the parameters of the search that you have, and given that criteria, now give me an answer or give me anomalies that I can then look at or detect or to verify. And I think that's a more responsible use, but again, not everybody's writing that into policy.
And I can see a situation where an officer gathers a lot of information from various sources, photographs, other officers, citizens, and plugs it all in and says, write my report, so that the officer doesn't have to do that. And I think that's fraught with peril, because you may look at the report and say, what is this? This doesn't make sense. I mean, I know AI has come a long way, Chief, but it does seem like there's got to be some limitations, at least until we get to a point where we fully understand the part of it that's not particularly accurate.
Well, and that's the limitations. And that's where this openness, as far as, yes, we're using that. If you go into trial, Greg, and you know that the officer's report was generated by AI, well, that gives you a whole different line of questioning that you're going to approach things from. And so those are the types of responsibilities that we need to write into policy and specify, so that we don't have misperception or, in fact, just dishonesty in the system.
My understanding is that Utah already has a law that says police departments are required to disclose if they use AI to help write those police reports. Is that happening often? Do you know?
I couldn't tell you for sure, because I haven't seen any data as far as have they checked on this, have they made sure, and, quite frankly, in the era we're in, have they used AI to check on whether or not they're using AI?
Right.
And so those are the types of things that we just need to be aware of.
But it does have a potential for very good, doesn't it, Chris? Just in terms of just making life easier for everyone, even the defense attorneys.
Without a question. Without question. And in fact, some of the things that I'm working on specifically are amazing technology that will take out potentially some of the human error that's involved in some police work. But in doing that, again, have we written the policy? Have we discussed the impact? And then also, when we talk about impact, so one time we're successful, or 10% of the time, is that worth the other cost that may be to society and to other people who are not involved in criminal activity? When you look at facial recognition, how many of us want all of our moments in life recorded somewhere because we were in a public space? Those are the questions that we need to ask. Not did it work one time, but what are the consequences of all the other times that we don't use it or it didn't work?
Right. I can see both sides. I think there are real concerns. I also see that it can be really helpful when you've got like a gigantic pile of papers and you're trying to find patterns maybe, or the phone calls. I mean, I guess I can see both sides on this one.
Well, or a moment in the video, right? Most officers now are generating a tremendous amount of on-camera video that they wear on their bodies. Mm-hmm. Well, across the country, less than 20% of that actually gets reviewed. With AI, potentially 100% could be reviewed. But then what are we getting? What are we not getting? All right. All of those other little things, right? We've now recorded Senator so-and-so that just happened to be in the background of this. But boy, do we capture that, and how long do we retain it for? These are the questions that we need to make sure, because we've made this mistake in the past, right? If you look at how we instituted things like tasers and radios in cars, we put the product ahead of the policy, and we have some very negative outcomes because of that. In fact, people have lost their lives because of that. So let's ask the question with AI, how do we do it right before we just implement?
So in the last minute, where do you see this going over the next several years as it relates to law enforcement and investigation?
Well, I think if there's anyone who's not looking at this, who's not speaking of policy and practice and procedure and everything involved in it, you are behind the curve already. And so I see this exponentially growing in the next 5 to 10 years.
Great. I kind of hope so. Thanks for joining us. Nice to hear
Always
your voice
a pleasure.
again, by the way.
Hey, thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a really interesting discussion.
Yeah.
So it's everywhere, right? AI is everywhere. And we need to think, I think, like Chief Burbank said, we need to think about the implications too.
Yeah. Well, there was a political race that we were following pretty closely in Hungary, and their prime minister, who's been in office for 16 years, Viktor Orban, has been voted out of power. We'll discuss the impact of that globally and here in the United States when we come back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 11 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Cameron Elliott. KSL's top local story this hour: police have arrested a man who's accused of killing his mother and another man in Springville. The two victims have not been seen for more than 3 weeks. KSL News Radio's Adam Small has the details.
According to arrest documents, a witness told police he saw Sarah Johnson and John Hendricks with Johnson's son, 28-year-old Matthew Jacob Leonard, on March 20th. But police say that witness told them he thought he heard gunshots inside the home and couldn't reach the two victims afterwards. Investigators say when they got a search warrant for the home, they went in and found blood, bullet holes, and shell casings.
The victims' bodies still haven't been found. Leonard has been booked into jail on suspicion of aggravated murder and obstruction of justice. The Salt Lake County District Attorney will appear on this year's primary ballot even after a challenger got more delegate votes. KSL News Radio's Brianna Willis reports.
The decision on who will be the next Salt Lake County District Attorney could have been decided over the weekend if one candidate had a 55% majority vote at Saturday's convention. And Sean Robinson just missed the cutoff with a 53% of delegate support. This means the race will go to the primary elections with Robinson and the current Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill on the ballot. Gill received 47% of votes from delegates.
Gill has served as the district attorney for the past 16 years, and Robinson says it's time for a fresh perspective. Your money at this moment: the markets have rallied today. The Dow Jones is currently up 5 points. It's a fraction of a percent. The S&P 500 is up 30 points. That's 0.4%. And the NASDAQ is up 150 points. That's a little over half of 1%. Coming up, the death throes of snow. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 11:01.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Trying to make sense of the markets? Looking to diversify out of all the craziness? Thinking about tangible assets like precious metals? Listen to The Gold Show with Alan Johnson right here on KSL at 3 p.m. Sunday afternoons. Stay up to date on retirement trends, how the IRA rollover process works, and why investors are turning to physical gold. Alan is a national talk show host with decades of experience in the markets. Tune in for Alan's Insights and The Gold Show this Sunday afternoon at 3.
Every day here in Utah, people turn to KSL News Radio for one simple reason: trust. Trust for our reporters, hosts, our coverage, and trust in the businesses heard right here. I've met so many of our listeners over the years, and they'll tell you KSL is part of their daily routine, in the car, at work, at home. And when they hear your business here, it carries the weight of that trust. It isn't just another ad. It's a recommendation coming from a reliable source. When you advertise on KSL News Radio, you reach a loyal, highly engaged audience who listens intentionally. They show up for breaking news, accurate information, and meaningful conversations. And because of that connection, they respond. And when you pair our on-air credibility with digital tools like display advertising, social media, streaming audio, search, geo-targeting, and retargeting, you get a full funnel strategy that works and reaches the right people at the right time. Get marketing that truly moves the needle. Partner with the voice Utah trusts. KSL. Learn more at kslnewsradio.com/advertise.
Kitchen and bath transformations start with AMC Building Materials. AMC Building Materials is a large kitchen cabinet and countertop supplier serving both wholesale and retail customers. AMC offers factory direct pricing on all interior remodeling materials, giving you exceptional value without sacrificing quality. Most standard items are available for quick payment and pickup right away. AMC Building Materials provides professional service, free design, and free on-site measurements, along with expert installation by top AMC professionals. From bold kitchen designs to beautiful functional bathrooms, AMC delivers outstanding value with styles you'll love. And best of all, most projects can be completed within just 10 days. Come experience beauty you can see, quality you can feel, and service you can trust. Get directions to the new AMC Building Materials showroom at 3678 South 700 West today and schedule your free estimate. Visit amckitchenslc.org. That's amckitchenslc.org.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by UCCU. Build smart, save big with construction loans at UCCU. Here's Cormac Bone.
Congestion on southbound I-15 as the West Davis Highway drivers merge onto I-15. Doesn't look like there's anything else other than those merging issues, and it's a little bit of delay as you drive on I-15 from Farmington into Centerville. Otherwise, roadways looking really good all across the Wasatch Front, especially speed-wise. We do have a crash, though, eastbound I-80 right as you come into Parley's Canyon. They're blocking a right shoulder there. No delays behind them. While you're planning your day, plan for comfort too with the Good Feet store. Find the location nearest you at goodfeet.com. Cormac Bone in the KSL Traffic Center.
Today's going to be partly cloudy with a chance of rain showers. Tomorrow, temperatures are going to be similar, but with no chance of rain. Expect highs in the 60s. Right now, though, it's 47 degrees and partly cloudy downtown. I'm Cameron Elliott from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
So authoritarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban from Hungary was soundly defeated over the weekend. And in fact, one of the things that's interesting to me is that he conceded relatively quickly, but he did call it a painful election result.
Yeah, here's more from ABC.
President Trump's closest ally on this continent, Viktor Orban, who has ruled Hungary for the past 16 years, has suffered a crushing defeat. Orban's younger challenger, Peter Magyar, winning a clear majority of seats in the Hungarian parliament. President Trump welcoming Orban to the White House in November, even sending Vice President Vance to Budapest just 5 days ago to endorse Orban ahead of the vote. Vance and Orban attacking the European Union, but now the new Hungarian leader, Peter Magyar, is promising to repair relations with the EU.
So one of the things that Orban has done is continued to block NATO membership for Ukraine and block funding for Ukraine coming from the EU. This is going to be a real shift.
Yeah, and he was known. I mean, he'd been the premier there for 16 years,
yeah.
and he was very far right. He obviously was popular because he kept winning elections, but he had a rough go, and the more I learned about him, the more I thought, this is probably somebody that's vulnerable, especially at this time. J.D. Vance went out to Trump for him at the end there, but it wasn't enough. Why this matters, we'll hear more now from ABC foreign correspondent Tim Sophie Burridge on ABC's Start Here podcast.
He was, for decades, a thorn in the side of the European Union, breaking European Union rules, in direct conflict with them. And then more recently, he's been the closest buddy of President Trump in Europe. It matters for Europe, and it also matters for the Trump administration's stated aim that they want to promote and increase MAGA-style politics on this continent here in Europe.
So again, what's interesting? Well, there's a lot of stuff that's interesting, but one of the things that's interesting is the person who won. It's Magyar, right?
Yeah. That's where they.
Peter Magyar. He was in the Orban circle. He was a loyalist. He campaigned against him. He broke with that party in 2024, created his own party, and campaigned against corruption and then on everyday issues like healthcare and public transport. He's also pledged to rebuild Hungary's relationships with the EU and with NATO. And what's really interesting to me is I read a Politico article about what Trump's opponents need to do to be able to defeat him in the next election. And one of the things they point out is think about breaking from the center, right? Think about a different party, or at least make sure you're out there and really being open and talking about, what you've seen.
Yeah, and for quite a while, at least it seems like for several decades, Hungary has been a bit of an outlier with Europe. It hasn't been part of the same equation. They haven't been a member of NATO. They're not involved with the European Union, although they're right there in the fray. I mean, it would seem like maybe this is a time, and again, we ebb and flow both in this country and worldwide with leaders who are at a given time either far right, far left, whichever. There's good and bad to both. But this seems to be a really significant shift for that country to do something. And the margin of victory by Magyar was, he got like
significant,
over 2/3 of the vote.
And I heard, and I haven't been able to verify it yet, but I heard that there was something close to 80% of the electorate turned out. I mean, just an incredibly high turnout for this election.
Yeah, so the reason we're talking about it is I don't think it's too early or too maybe that this is not relevant enough to talk about what's going on in the world or what's going on in America and how people are looking at things right now, and that maybe some people are looking at the far right as maybe going a little bit too far. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that this means anything at all, but it certainly means something for Europe, and I would think that this means something for NATO in terms of getting some additional support, maybe not from the United States.
Well, it means something for Ukraine.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
So that's one of the things I think that really stands out. So, we almost feel isolated and insulated from wars that are happening, right? We read about them in the news, but it doesn't hit us as personally as people in the over in Europe. And they're not too far from Ukraine. And so Orban was not only was he a Trump supporter and ally, but a Putin supporter and ally, and he has thwarted multiple votes where they needed unanimity, and he would be the one no vote, right? So Ukraine, I think, is probably pretty happy about this election result, and so is a lot of other other European countries.
I didn't realize this, but apparently Orban was the European Union's longest-serving leader. I mean, he'd been there for a long time, 16 years. He was friendly with Russia. He was friendly with the Trump administration. Two approaches that didn't seem to go well with his public. And I don't have the exact numbers, but it was. You said earlier, 80% of the people showed up to vote. Wow.
Really a lot.
And he won by over 2/3 majority.
Yeah, and because they have a multi-party system, you have parliament that you will have different. But it's proportional, right? So how many votes? So he has won a clear majority with his new party. This AP article that I'm looking at points out that Russia was plotting to interfere and tip the election in Orban's favor, according to numerous media reports, including by the Washington Post. But I will say this, that even if they did do that, they were overwhelmed by the turnout and the number of people who voted for Orban's opponent.
Yeah, and I did find the numbers not only, but 93% of the votes have been counted. He had 53%. Orban had 37%. There were other parties, obviously, but he's set to win 94 out of Hungary's 106 voting districts. I mean, that's an majority.
Overwhelming majority. Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's interesting to talk about what happens in Europe, right? It's a butterfly causes a hurricane kind of thing, right? Because it does trickle over. And like I mentioned, I think it's interesting that he was willing to concede defeat. He did not call on his supporters to march on the presidential palace or whatever it is that the prime minister lives in there. He said they won, and we will continue to support the country from the opposition party.
And there was something that I had heard or read before that election that some people felt like he wouldn't go away without a fight and that he would be election denier. But he did say, I congratulate the victorious party. We are going to serve the Hungarian nation and our homeland from opposition. In other words, I'm not going away, but I'm supporting the new leader. And his opponent, Magyar, said this: tonight, truth prevailed over lies. Today, we won because Hungarians didn't ask what their homeland could do for them. They asked what they could do for their homeland. Sounds like John F. Kennedy. You found the answer and you followed through. So, yeah, I mean, people were in Budapest, people were excited. A lot of anti-government songs were being sung. People were cheering. Yeah. I mean, the proof is going to be in the pudding. We'll see what happens in the next year or so. But it seems to be a fairly significant event for that country and that part of the world.
So one of the immediate things that could happen is that Magyar withdraws the opposition to €90 million loan to Ukraine. And as you know, the war in Iran has spilled over into impacting Ukraine and Russia because Russia has had sanctions lifted. They are getting basically some financial reinforcement because of the war in Iran. And Ukraine is seeing some of their weapons promised to them being diverted to this war over in Iran. So we'll keep following that. But that was a really interesting European election. Okay, when we come back, we've got another election to talk about, except for one that's not going to happen, I guess, because California Democrat Eric Swalwell bowed out of the race for California's governor following some recent sexual assault allegations. We're going to talk about that more when we come back.
Tim Hughes back once again at Replenish Landscape Garden Products. Greg and Mike are here. Greg, we talk about Replenish, but don't always take the time, I think, to tell people exactly why this stuff is different than anything else out there.
Replenish was developed by Connie Cannon and Peter Lassick years ago. They came up with a formula that was very low in salts, very high in nutrients. It's a material that works well as a soil amendment. It also has a dark, rich color, which many people use as a top dressing. It helps to hold moisture in and keep the weeds down, as well as feeding your plants like you won't believe. And people who use it in their gardens and yards, it gives them this great professional look that they love, as well as producing wonderful plants, and they will come back year after year after year.
You'll find out why people say Replenish is good stuff. Visit them at 4660 South, 200 West in Murray. See them online at replenishcompost.com or give them a call at 801-262-5142. Replenish, it's good stuff.
Imagine all that could happen in 5 years. Jobs change, kids grow up, new memes come and go. But what if you had reliable, intelligent Wi-Fi and the price didn't change for 5 years? Well, thanks to the Xfinity 5-year price guarantee, you don't have to worry about that part of your future. You're guaranteed 5 years of Wi-Fi that boosts speeds to your devices that need the most, that finds and fixes any issues before you even notice. It's like a super intelligent Wi-Fi that keeps you protected from online threats. You get incredible gaming speeds on multiple devices and no one battling for bandwidth for the next 5 years. All your devices will be working in perfect harmony with the equipment, with no annual contracts, no fees, and no strings. So even though your kid will grow up and you still won't understand 6, 7, the price for your sharp, reliable internet will stay put. The Xfinity 5-year price guarantee. Lock in your price and unlock the possibilities. Xfinity. Imagine that. Restrictions apply. Select plans only.
Most financial advisors only manage your money. They refer you out for taxes. They refer you out for estate planning. They refer you out when things get complicated. Did they really vet that person? Or did they meet once, exchange business cards, and call it a partnership? A referral isn't accountability. It's a handoff. When your investments, taxes, and estate plan are built separately, gaps happen, and those can cost money. At Trajan, we didn't build a referral network. We built a family office for all. Wealth, tax, estate. One team delivering coordinated planning, once reserved for the ultra-wealthy. If you want real coordination and not just introductions, call Trajan Wealth today. Call Trajan today at 801-207-9900. That's 801-207-9900. 801-207-9900. 801-207-9900. That's 801-207-9900.
Advisory services through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Other services through Trajan Estate and Trajan Tax. Additional disclosures at TrajanWealth.com.
When the dollar's convertibility into gold ended in 1971, gold was fixed at $35 an ounce. Fast forward to today, and the U.S. dollar has lost over 85% of its purchasing power. Meanwhile, gold has increased in value by over 12,000%. Central banks are buying gold at record levels. Major firms are holding significant positions in gold. And I choose to buy gold from Birch Gold Group. It's Dan Bongino, and it all starts with education. Birch Gold just announced their Learn and Earn Precious Metals event. This free online event rewards you for learning the basics of investing in precious metals. Sign up to get free silver on your next purchase if you qualify. And you can get even larger incentives as you go. The more you learn, the more you can earn. But act now. This special event only runs through April 30th. So text my name, Dan, to the number 989898 to join Birch Gold's Learn and Earn Precious Metals event by April 30th. Text Dan to 989898 today. Message and data rates may apply.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, do it now. Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
Everything to my back is dark.
High in the alpine wilderness.
Really ugly clouds coming over from the north.
A place
The ridgeline is imposing, the escarpments, the drops.
where survival,
It's dark now. I have nothing.
is never certain.
This is not good.
My name's Dave Cawley, and I'm the host of a podcast called Uinta Triangle. It's about the disappearance of an Australian hiker named Eric.
Our conclusion, and that of the sheriff, is that the mountains have decided to keep him.
Come retrace Eric's footprints with me.
You have done this walk too, but this is your backyard.
Did he really make a wrong turn, or did he decide that he was done?
He is not the first or last person to vanish in this remote region.
It was haunting to see the photos. I mean, really.
Find and follow the podcast series Uinta Triangle. That's Uinta, spelled U-I-N-T-A, Triangle, wherever you get your podcasts. All episodes out now.
Inside Sources.
Well, California legislator Democrat Eric Swalwell, one of the leading Democrats in the crowded California governor's race, is now bowing out of that race. This follows sexual assault allegations that have come to light over the past few days, and he's now actually facing calls to resign his House seat and threats to expel him if he doesn't. This is ABC News national correspondent Stephen Portnoy reporting from Washington.
There's now talk of not only expelling Eric Swalwell, but also 3 other scandal-plagued members of the House in one fell swoop. That sort of thing hasn't happened since a pair of Confederates from Missouri and Kentucky were purged from the body in 1861. 2 of the targets of the possible expulsion effort are Democrats, and 2 are Republicans, so removing all 4 at the same time would not affect the balance of power in the chamber. It would take a bipartisan 2/3 vote to pull it off.
That's really something. So look, there have been at least 4 women who've accused Swalwell of sexual assault or inappropriate behavior. They spoke to the San Francisco Chronicle. They spoke to CNN. He wrote on social media, "I'm deeply sorry for my mistakes and judgment I've made in my past." But then he says, "I will fight the serious and false allegations that have been made. But that's my fight, not a campaign's."
But he bowed out, which I don't.
Of
you
the
could
governor's
take
race.
that for mean whatever you think. But maybe he just felt like the specter of it all was going to hurt his campaign more than it was worth. He doesn't seem to be getting out of the Congress anytime soon. So
well, and again, he wouldn't have been, as a House member, he would have been up for election anyway, and so he chose to run for governor. And the reason it's a crowded governor's seat is because California's governor is one of the governors that is term limited. So you can't have Newsom run again because he's done his time. And so it's basically going to be an open seat.
like you said, there are others that are being looked at in the crosshairs. Representative Ala Polina Luna, Republican from Florida, has announced plans that could force him to be expelled over the allegations. And Democrats are saying, okay, well, what about your representative, Tony Gonzalez, a Texas Republican?
Exactly.
And so, like you said, they're kind of two from both sides. How far this goes, we don't know. But apparently the House is looking, at least at some level, of cleaning up its act.
It's interesting. So I'm looking at an article from The Hill, and they we just heard We just heard from Stephen Portnoy that there were 4 people that they were looking at. So you've got the 2 that you mentioned already, Swalwell and Gonzalez. And then you also have Corey Mills, and who's a Republican, and Sheila, I don't know how to say her last name.
Sherfulis.
Yeah, Sherfulis McCormick, who's Mills' former girlfriend. She's a Democrat. Mills' former girlfriend had to obtain a restraining order against him last year for harassment. His simultaneous girlfriend accused him of assault. And then an ethics subcommittee last month found Sherfulis McCormick committed 25 ethics violations related to allegedly using millions in improperly paid federal disaster funds to finance her campaign.
Something like $5 million.
So they've both denied wrongdoing, but wouldn't it be interesting if they just said, look, we're just so tired of you guys. We're so tired of you guys. We're out. We're done. We're done.
You know, we haven't had a controversy there. Of course, we had that. Who was it? George Santos.
George Santos. You had Matt Gaetz,
New York.
too.
Yeah, Matt Gaetz. But Santos was he had so many problems, had so much baggage that he ended up, I think, bailing out.
He finally did. But look, I don't think George Santos even knows what the truth is anymore. He lived so many different lives.
Right.
So Nancy Mace said that she said on social media, on X, time to clean house. These members have proven through their own actions they are unfit to serve.
Do you know what it takes to get somebody? Does it take 2/3?
2/3. Yep.
Oh, well, that's going to be difficult for anybody.
I don't know, right? If they feel like, okay, it's not going to upset the balance of power. Now, if it were, it was going to make it harder for Republicans, there are already several Republicans who are saying, I will vote to expel both. The first 2 people that we mentioned.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and so apparently 21 Democratic members of Congress had endorsed his bid for governor, Swalwell. They've now backed out of that.
Yep.
State party leaders have put pressure on him to exit. So, yeah, he did what he thought was the right thing to do. So the California governor's race is a big deal. I thought at one point we were talking about Kamala Harris thinking about throwing her name in the hat. She didn't. I don't know who's left in that race. Gavin Newsom, you say there are term limits. He may have other plans for 2028 anyway. He's been very outspoken against the Trump administration. But that's got to be a huge assignment, and you could understand somebody wanting that position pretty badly.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talked about George Santos. So they asked him, the media asked him basically about being expelled because he was expelled. And you can resign, right? You can resign. And that's what happened with Nixon, of course. If you remember, he chose to resign rather than being impeached. But Santos noted, and this is on X, he's the only living former member of Congress that was expelled from the institution, and advised the members caught in controversy to resign on their own rather than being forced out. He said, there's no dignity in being expelled. If I could go back in time, I'd do it differently, and I'd do it on my own terms.
I tell people that all the time. Attorneys, judges, other
resign.
People that I represent. Look, do you want to be impeached or expelled, or do you want to resign? Yeah. And sometimes it's easier to just take the high road and say, I'm out of here. I mean, even sometimes you'll tell employees that. Do you want to be fired or quit? Because going into your next job, it might make a difference. So if you can see the writing on the wall. And Swalwell, this is another thing. Before yesterday, who'd heard of Eric Swalwell?
A lot of people had.
Yeah, I guess so, but I hadn't. He was a congressman from California. I'm sure he was very popular. He seems to be very charismatic. But I mean, now that's his legacy. That's what people will think about when they think about him. And what does it do for his political future? Unless the passage of time, people forget about it. He's probably done. And sexual assault allegations from a former staffer, and I think there may have been others, but
there were a total of 4.
Yeah, so 4 strikes, you're out. I mean, it seems like I tell people this all the time when I have people who are accused of sexual misconduct. If it's a he said, she said, that's one thing, but if it's a he said and 4 she saids, that's another. Because in any time you have due process and you have who's telling the truth, corroboration can be backed up by more people saying the same thing about an individual.
It's interesting. So there are going to be Republicans as well. And President Donald Trump endorsed somebody for the California governor. It's former Fox News host Steve Hilton. But the California GOP refused to go along with Trump's endorsement, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. I saw earlier a statement of who was left in the race, and there were far more Democrats than Republicans. Maybe because it's a Democratic position, but I think there were like 5 or 6 Democrats still in the race, and there were 2 Republicans. Again, a not cushy, but a plum position. If you in terms of governors, it's probably
if you remember, like California is there like something, if they were a country, they'd have the 19th largest economy in the world, something like that. I mean, they have a lot of stuff that happens in California, right? And we love to say here in Utah, don't turn Utah into California, but we sure do welcome them coming here and working here and moving their companies here,
bringing their money here, right?
Bringing their monies here, buying our houses here. Although there's maybe a problem with that, but
right. Another thing, I know we're running out of time here, is how could he have not known that this was coming down? I mean, the pike. Maybe he just served in Congress long enough and nobody said anything, but suddenly this comes out, and was he surprised that suddenly 4 people are coming forward? And what brought them out? He's been in Congress for some time. Nobody seemed to care. All of a sudden, he's in this political race. Was it one of his opponents that decided to get somebody to come forward? Was it some political thing from a Republican? Was it Democratic opponents? I mean, how did this all come out now? And he is claiming, I will fight these false allegations.
But he also said he'd made mistakes. And I think the women came with some receipts. There were several where they said, look, I told my friend also talked to the news and said, here are the text messages. Here's when I took her to the hospital. Right. So there's some pretty direct stuff. And I saw that same question on social media. Why now? Well, because it is becoming a higher and higher profile. And I think the damage of being sexually assaulted by somebody in a position of power. I mean, I think people are getting fed up with that, really. It's been happening for a long time, and I think enough people are saying we're just done.
Yeah, and it's a different time, thanks to Me Too movement and things like that, where people are being taken more seriously when they make these kind of allegations.
Mm-hmm. All right, look, Goblin Valley State Park has seen search and rescue calls nearly every day over the last week. Wow. The park manager is going to join us next with some safety tips when visiting the park. Stay with us.
It's 11:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Cameron Elliott. KSL's top national story this hour. From ABC News, the Prime Minister of Hungary will not be re-elected after spending 16 years in the position. ABC News foreign correspondent Tom Sufi-Burridge has more.
Viktor Orban was a close ally of Vladimir Putin. Well, he is still a close ally. He was going to Moscow. I mean, he was pretty much the only European leader who was going to Moscow recently. He wasn't like supporting Russia's war in Ukraine, but he was blocking European support for Ukraine. I mean, more recently, he's actually been blocking a $100 billion EU loan, which was destined for Ukraine and vital to keep that country afloat and also for its efforts in defending itself against Russia.
The election victory for Peter Magyar could mean big changes for the country. Other national stories KSL is following: interest rates are creeping up and a shrinking supply of affordable houses drove down existing home sales last month.
The figures suggest an overarching uneasiness on the part of would-be homebuyers to sign on the dotted line. The labor market has seen payrolls decline in 6 of the last 15 months, and interest rates, which had been falling to start the year, are on the rise again. The 3.98 million existing homes sold last month are the fewest since June of last year.
That's ABC's Jim Ryan reporting. Taking a look at your money now, the markets have really rallied today. We've got green across the board. The Dow Jones is up 35 points. That's a fraction of a percent. The S&P 500 is up 33. That's 0.5%. And the NASDAQ is up 169. That's just under 0.25%. Coming up, April's snow showers may bring May flowers. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 11:32.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Step back in time and commemorate the legacy of the world's most famous ship. Join Titanic, the exhibition, for an exclusive anniversary high tea on Monday, April 13th at 6 p.m. Savor elegant treats and immersive stories while surrounded by history. Located at the Shops at Southtown in Sandy. Don't miss out. The exhibition leaves Utah for good on April 19th. Reserve your high tea and tickets now at thetitanicexhibition.com.
Progressive knows that for business owners, vacations hit different. But hey, at least you finally took a vacation. And look at that. You only answered 53 calls, 84 emails, onboarded one new hire, and covered for Chris while he's out on paternity leave, and you did it all from a kayak. Because you, my friend, know how to relax. All right, you may not know how to take a day off, but you do know both your personal and business auto insurance needs can be covered in one place with Progressive. So at least that's relaxing, right? Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, not available in all states or situations.
Help DEA keep our communities safe and healthy by participating in National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day, Saturday, April 25th. Take action right in your own home by cleaning out your medicine cabinet of unneeded medications. Keep them safe, clean them out, take them back. Find a collection site near you at DEATakeback.com. Do your part to lower overdose deaths and prevent prescription drug misuse before it starts. That's DEATakeback.com.
Stolen Voices of Dole Valley, a gripping new 9-part investigative podcast about a serial killer you've probably never heard of, Warren Forrest, a sadistic predator who prowled the Pacific Northwest in the early 70s. He hid behind the deeds of Ted Bundy, and he's only been convicted of 2 murders, but is suspected of many more. Since the release of Stolen Voices of Dole Valley, a witness identified in the podcast could lead investigators to the remains of Jamie Grissom.
He ran into the woods. He said he stumbled. As he fell down, he looks up and sees the body of a young woman.
And now the FBI is testing forensic evidence that had been collecting dust for decades. This cold case is now red hot. Binge the entire season of Stolen Voices of Dole Valley right now, wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the latest breaking news.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by UCCU. Build smart, save big. UCCU, love where you bank. Here's Cormac Bone.
Normal congestion due to construction eastbound Quarry Ride Highway approaching Mountain View Corridor from Saratoga Springs into Lehigh. But where we have some abnormal delays, that's northbound I-15 approaching Willard Bay. Looks like it's just higher volumes. Couldn't find a crash or anything in the cams. Otherwise, though, I-15 looking really good between Ogden and Provo. I'm Cormac Bone in the KSL Traffic Center.
Right now, this week's temperature is going to sit in the mid to low 60s with a high chance of rain until Friday when it dives to 47 with the possibility of snow. Right now, though, it's 50 degrees and partly cloudy downtown. I'm Cameron Elliott from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
We're just coming off a winter where, although we didn't have as much snow as we usually have, we certainly had our share of avalanches. We had our share of people getting lost skiing. We had our share of search and rescue teams from all over the state going out trying to find snowmobilers and skiers who were caught in difficult situations. And now we enter the spring where a lot of our national parks, Holly, and state parks are suffering these huge storms, thunderstorms, which bring water in, that bring, especially these sort of narrow canyons. We have a lot of water coming in, slot canyons, floods, and people who are recreating, thinking they're having a great time, and all of a sudden their world changes in a huge hurry.
Well, we want to talk about Goblin Valley specifically because state park rangers have been out on multiple search and rescue calls there in Goblin Valley. Now, I've never been there personally, but my husband has gone on multiple scout trips to Goblin Valley. Really, really likes the location.
It's a beautiful area. So we have Drew Sprafke with us. He's the park manager of Goblin Valley State Park. Drew, thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning.
So can you tell us why people, and I know from my own personal experience, get involved in search and rescue situations at Goblin Valley?
So you mean as far as why they end up in places where they need search and rescue.
Yeah, what kind of things typically cause search and rescue to have to be deployed in areas like yours?
Yeah, so there's a variety of things in our area. And a big part is we just get a large number of visitors. So when you put a large number of people anywhere, something's going to go wrong. So that's just kind of part of it. And another thing that we see is kind of issues with people probably just not coming quite prepared for what they're going to get into. So maybe not doing all the research they need to, maybe not studying the maps enough, not really looking at the weather forecasts, not really planning when they're going to start, those sorts of things, and maybe not carrying all the proper equipment.
So that seems to lead right into what we need to do to be prepared when visiting, right? And I'll just say, one time I did a spontaneous hike, and I am not an outdoors person, but I did not have the appropriate footwear. I ended up in a pair of flip-flops, and I was regretting that choice by the end of the hike.
Yeah, we've seen that quite a few times. Yeah, footwear can be absolutely vital.
And it seems to me, especially as we start getting warmer and warmer, Drew, that a lot of people just don't go prepared in terms of water. They get in trouble out there. And is that the kind of thing that you expect in Goblin Valley?
Yeah, that becomes a big issue for us and all the surrounding area, typically starting in kind of the June, July, and August timeframe when the temperatures get really high. And kind of what we see then is just not being prepared for the heat overall. So maybe taking on a longer hike than you intended, not really realizing how exposed it might be, and just not carrying enough water, not quite wearing the right clothing. And that definitely, we'll definitely see a fair number of heat exhaustion type cases this summer, I assume, just like past years.
So what is available at parks like Goblin Valley? I mean, do you have volunteers from the community? Do you have I don't know, first responders, fire, and other park rangers like yourself? I mean, who typically responds to things in our state parks?
Yeah, so that's a big different question depending on your park. Goblin Valley is exceptionally unique because we are the most remote state park. So we are not near anything. So our closest town is going to be the little tiny town of Hanksville at about 40 minutes away. And then we're an hour from our slightly bigger town of Green River. So out here, we don't have a community. We don't have a fire station nearby. We don't have an ambulance. So for us, our response times to things, we can have a really long time. So we've got an hour for an ambulance to get here, up to 2 hours for our county search and rescue team, and up to an hour for a helicopter. So in-house, our park staff train a lot to help with emergencies, and we actually help a lot on surrounding federal lands because there are not any other resources. So we work very closely with the Emery County Sheriff's Department and Emery County Search and Rescue. And our staff, we have a very small staff, but we train every month on search and rescue and medical response. And we have staff here from basic first aid up to EMT level on park sites. So we kind of do everything we can to be ready to help people out. But they do need to know when they come out here that they're a long ways from real help.
And how do you know sometimes? I mean, I've been to Goblin Valley and some of the surrounding area, in the San Rafael area. I mean, there are plenty of places in even in Capitol Reef and some of the other areas where you don't have phone service. I mean, how typically are you notified, or is it just across the board all kinds of ways?
It's a lot of different ways. So I think that's a really good point you brought up. It's really important to recognize that you can't always rely on your cell phone. And I think people get really used to relying on it and thinking it's kind of their safety blanket. And out here, like you said, there are a lot of areas where there is no coverage. So I think kind of the three main ways that we're getting notified now. One, they just send somebody back to get us at our visitor center or our park housing. We do live on site. So that happens fairly often. So that's obviously quite a while from wherever the incident happened to getting to us. And then lately we've been getting quite a few either from satellite text where they can satellite text directly to Emery County Dispatch, which has been multiple of the last couple of things we've dealt with. And that's been a pretty interesting and really kind of neat development. And then quite a few people are also still using kind of the Garmin or Spot type GPS SOS devices. And so we still get a fair number from those, but it can come in just about any way.
So Drew, what's the best advice you have for listeners on what they should bring to be prepared as they go into Goblin Valley?
Yeah, so I think the biggest things to keep in mind are just kind of the pre-planning. We don't want to make it sound unsafe. I mean, even with kind of the increase in issues we've seen, it's still very small compared to the number of people that visit here. So it's still very safe to come out and visit and recreate. But I think just pre-planning is the biggest thing. And in Goblin Valley itself, it's not as big an issue. A lot of our incidents are on surrounding federal lands in the San Rafael Swell, particularly the slot canyons. And for us, the biggest things that I would like as takeaways are, one, check the weather. And you definitely have to check it. We post weather at our visitor center every single day, first thing in the morning, and we follow the national weather, flash flood warnings, and the heat warnings. And checking those and making sure that you don't go in canyons when there's rain in the forecast at all is super critical. And then if you're going to go hike one of the canyons, one of the biggest things that we've been running into is people just don't take them seriously. So like Little Wild Horse Canyon is right next to the park. It's incredibly popular. People come from everywhere. And it's kind of ranked in all the guides as a very beginner family-friendly canyon. And that is absolutely true, but it's also a serious canyon. And it's the number one place that we end up having to go on rescue incidents. And it's mostly because people didn't take it seriously. So they committed too late for the long hike. They didn't bring enough gear. And a big thing is they didn't look at the map beforehand, and they got off of route once they got out of the backside of the canyons. And we've ended up spending hours trying to find people who have taken the wrong route on the backside. So trying to plan ahead, bring your basic essentials, your water, extra food, some sort of clothing, having a map or something to help you orient yourself, not just relying on your phone. All of those things I think are absolutely key, plus letting somebody know what your plans are. So if you don't come back in time, somebody knows and tries to get a hold of us.
Drew, we've got about a minute. Tell us a good reason why people should visit Goblin Valley this weekend coming up.
So Goblin Valley overall is just an amazing place to come out to. So if people haven't been out here, we're one of the most unique landscapes in Utah. So we have 3 square miles of what we call goblins, which are rock hoodoo formations of all sorts of shapes. And one of the coolest things here is you get to just kind of explore those however you want. So it's off-trail hiking in the hoodoos. So you get to have an experience that most people kind of keep as a memory for life. And then along with that, we have great camping opportunities, lots of other hiking. We have 7 miles of mountain bike trails. We have a disc golf course. So lots of opportunities to come out. And we also do educational programs. So this Friday, we'll be doing a telescope program looking at the constellations. So there's always something to do out here for pretty much anybody in the family.
All right. Thank you so much. That was Drew Sprafke, park manager of Goblin Valley State Park. Go out there and have fun safely. Okay, it's already time for our fun facts and closing arguments of the day. And I have to tell you about the story of a parrot that went on an underwater adventure in its own little submarine. Stay with us.
This Mother's Day, give her more than just a gift. Give her comfort that she'll feel every single day. From Minky Couture, the blankets moms everywhere are obsessed with. Discover all new arrivals just in time for Mother's Day. We're talking brand new spring colors, fresh floral-inspired designs, and Minky's softest, coziest fabrics yet. Whether she loves something light and airy or plush and luxurious, there's a Minky made just for her. Perfect for relaxing, recharging, and wrapping herself in some well-deserved me time. And for a limited time, enjoy special Mother's Day deals in-store and online. Plus, KSL will be live at the Layton location this Friday from 10 to 1 for the movie show. Stop by, shop Minky for Mom or yourself, and use code MOVIE50 at checkout for 50% off any regularly priced blanket. Again, that's promo code MOVIE50 online at minkycouture.com or at a store location near you. Because she's given you everything. This year, give her something she'll truly feel. Minky Couture, made for moments that matter.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 18 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 30, 60, or 90 days from a station contest or event may not be eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com/contests.
An emergency can happen any second. Here's a few seconds to think about where you'd go. When you need medical care fast, the closest emergency room is a smart thing to know. Common Spirit Health ERs are your direct path between feeling scared or uncomfortable and feeling better. Find emergency care in your neighborhood at mountain.commonspirit.org.
This is Derek Miller speaking on business. Ronald McDonald House Mountain West helps families by handling the everyday challenges that come with a child needing medical care. By easing stress and removing barriers, they let parents focus on what really matters, their child's recovery. CEO Carrie Romano joins us with more.
Ronald McDonald House Mountain West keeps families close when a child is seriously ill or injured. We provide a free home near and within hospitals so parents can focus on their child instead of worrying about where they'll sleep, eat, or take care of day-to-day needs during such a stressful time. This work only happens because of the support of our incredible community. Donors make it possible and volunteers bring it to life every single day. Together, we turn generosity into meaningful, direct support for families at their most vulnerable moments, helping them to focus on what matters most, the health and the recovery of their child. Since 1988, we've proudly served families across the Mountain West, and the need in Utah continues to grow, with more pediatric patients than ever before. We are committed to meeting that need, and your support makes all the difference. Learn more, donate, or volunteer at ronaldmcdonaldhousemountainwest.org.
By supporting families during their most challenging moments, Ronald McDonald House Mountain West strengthens communities across Utah, easing burdens, promoting health, and helping children recover while keeping families close. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, speaking on business.
911, tell me exactly what happened.
My son and his wife and their 2 children haven't responded.
Susan Powell disappeared on a snowy morning in 2009.
And I said, Josh, where are you? You need to get home.
And her husband will never be held accountable.
Your wife is missing, Josh.
Yeah, but
And you want to think about it for a couple of days?
I'd had this overwhelming feeling that he had done something to her already.
I'm Dave Cawley, host of the podcast Cold.
Then he starts making phone calls to Susan's phone.
Hello, Susan. We are on our way back.
It's the deepest of deep dives into this tragic tale of abuse.
Where was Josh when Susan disappeared?
I don't know. Of one mother's desperate attempt to escape.
This is me, covering all my bases.
Help prevent it from happening again.
Our focus has and continues to be finding Susan.
Listen and learn by following Cold wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're struggling with your mortgage, there's a free government program that offers expert one-on-one advice about your mortgage options. Call 1-888-995-HOPE or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
The new Inside Sources.
So I had to share this story about a parrot who has his own submarine. So
can't be possibly true.
It's of course it's true. I would not mislead you. Look, this is a parrot. His name is Bebe, and he goes on all kinds of adventures with his owner. And the owner built him a little submarine. It's a plastic food container, and it has a paintball air tank. and he calls it the Babelsphere. And he went down in the Atlantic Ocean, and there's a little video of it. It's posted on social media, and it's had over 4.5 million views on Instagram. It's so funny. So it's a little parakeet. It's not even a parrot. It's this little tiny parakeet, and the owner is just like taking him on all of these adventures. So he's gone under the ocean, but he's also gone skydiving. He's taken a 500-mile bike ride. He's gone skiing. I mean, it's this little teeny parakeet. We need some happy news.
How much consent was involved here? Well, that's
zero.
Good. You're right, yeah. The parakeets probably enjoyed it all.
Well, that's what his owner said. The owner says, well, he went in willingly and he enjoyed it. And he said this, he'd rather do that than, sit back on the shore in a cage or back in an Airbnb.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, to each his own.
Oh my gosh. So they have been together, the owner and this little parakeet, since 2020. Again, just a tiny little thing. So I just
done some things that 90% of us haven't done.
Have not done. Yeah, you're correct.
Been in a submarine and gone skydiving.
I have not done neither one of those.
Me either.
Okay, so I do have some fun facts of the day. And today is National Peach Cobbler Day, which strikes me as a little weird because it's not exactly peach season or really camping season. It's a little early for that. But it's National Peach Cobbler Day, so happy National Peach Cobbler Day.
Peach days in Brigham City or Box Elder County are like
it's like into the summer.
September, right?
Yeah. I mean, August if you've got early peaches.
Right.
Okay, so I have a joke for you, too, before I get to on this day. What do you call it when Captain Jack Sparrow teaches a low-impact, core-strengthening, mind-body fitness class?
Don't even.
Pilates of the Caribbean. Instead of pirates. Okay. Okay.
I like
so
the sparrow thing.
I
with
know,
the
Jack Sparrow.
Parrot and
yeah. Okay. See, it was kind of related.
Yeah.
Today is April 13th, and so it was on this day in 1743 that Thomas Jefferson was born. Of course, we know Thomas Jefferson as one of the first presidents of our country. Number 2?
3.
Number 3. Because it was John Adams.
John Adams was second.
Yeah, that's right. And he was the vice president, and it was very acrimonious between the two of them.
Right.
Anyway, so we've also done a couple of fun facts about the Pony Express, but it was on this day in 1860 that the first one finally made it all the way to California. So
we sort of followed the Pony
We
Express
have.
on this show.
Yep.
The first one left.
That's right.
A week, 2 weeks ago. The first one hit Utah a week ago, and then
and now it was
first one-
made it to Sacramento, California. So it was also on this day in 1866 that Butch Cassidy was born in Beaver, Utah. So Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids. Butch Cassidy was a Utah boy.
born in Beaver, Utah, and
Yeah.
you can find Butch Cassidy Trail and the old what was it called, the Wild Bunch, the places that they hung out, and places that they hid out, and that type of thing.
Interesting, huh? Okay, on this day in 1919, Madeline Murray O'Hare is born. She was an atheist. She was very outspoken, and she ended up suing, saying that organized Bible study in public schools was unconstitutional. And in 1962, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 8-1 in her favor.
That she was right.
That she was right, and that's where you can have religious teachings and you can have religious classes outside of public school, but you are not at this point supposed to do Bible teachings in public school.
The pendulum has swung a little bit.
It has
Some
swung.
states are now trying to require.
Right. And Oklahoma, there was just a ruling in Oklahoma. They were trying to get the 10 Commandments to be taught in their classes, and they were overruled. So I also have this sad fact about her. It was in 1995, so she was fairly elderly at that point. She was kidnapped and then murdered by a former employee. So that was kind of a sad end to Madeline's life.
What was her name?
Madeline O'Hare. Like hair, interestingly. Okay, so it was on this day in 1970 that Apollo 13 had made their famous communication back down to Houston. Houston, we've had a problem. And that was that their oxygen tank had exploded in
People
space.
use that all the time for various things. I mean, my sister sent me something the other day. Greg, we have a problem. Or Houston, we have a problem. And she was like, our house is being sold. We don't have another place to move into yet.
Yeah, right. So we use that all the time. And in fact, when they were just talking about Artemis, and of course they landed safely on Friday, and they had estimated. By the way, they estimated the time of landing to be, I think, 5:07 Pacific time. Guess what time they landed? This is before they launched, by the way.
What?
5:07.
I mean, think about that. Just think
Before
about the
they
technology
launched.
of that. Yeah, that we're going to plan it, and we're going to, and they even kind of know where to place the ships so that they can catch them.
Remarkable,
quickly.
right?
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay. It was also on this day in 1990, it took that long for the Soviet government to officially acknowledge that they had executed nearly 5,000 Polish military officers and buried in mass graves in the Katyn forest. But they had denied that for many, many years. And finally in 1990, they said, yeah, we did it.
I wonder what the circumstances of that even would have been.
Well, they again, when Russia came in, when the Russian forces or Soviet forces, I guess, came in 1940, they basically wanted to take out all of the Polish government, and they did it by executing Polish military. And then remember, so Russia and the Nazi Germany were at odds with each other, and so Poland, it was the Nazis that said, "Hey, there's this mass grave here," and Russia denied it until 1990.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, those are my fun facts.
Okay, well, so I was thinking about closing arguments today, and I was interested in that last guest we had, Drew Sprafke, park manager of Goblin Valley State Park, and it reminded me of things that I do in my own practice, my own weekend practice. As you know, I'm a member of the Ski Patrol, and people come to this state and all over the West, really all over the country, to enjoy our outdoor environment, to enjoy recreating, to enjoy things that they see. And so often we see people just in what we do, the last thing we do on ski patrol every single day is what we call sweep, which means we scour the mountain for people. Now, in 42 years, knock on wood, this is actually not wood, we haven't lost anyone. But every once in a while, you'll get a call, a daddy, a mom say, hey, I can't find my kid. Typically, they're in the arcade or hanging out with their friends or something like that. But we do that, and you go to the state parks, and invariably, and I see this all the time, even in Fish Lake where I was a couple weeks ago, I'm sitting there watching the four-wheelers and motorcyclists go by, and pretty soon I see a helicopter coming into the area and landing. And these are what my point is this: we have such beauty here in Utah. We have such the parks and the ski resorts and everything are so outstanding, but people just, I would say, if you ask Sprafke this, and I didn't get a chance to, what percent of the people that you have to go do search and rescue did something wrong? He'd probably say 100, because you have to count on these things. So I really have to hand it to our first responders, even though I'm touting myself a little bit here, for what they do to make our parks and our recreation here as good as they are. But I also have to say this: people don't often realize the expense that they cause and the risk that they cause to the first responders and to the search and rescue team when they have to go out. And I've gone out, looking for people that have left our ski resort area and gone. Typically, they're home. You don't even find them, but suddenly somebody's calling for that. And I've, in the spirit of full disclosure, I was mountain biking alone like an idiot in Moab, and I went on a wrong trail. But for the fact that I had sort of focused on some landmarks, I was in trouble. I was in serious, and my bike seat was broken, so I couldn't sit down. I had to stand up pedal, and I got scared. I was out of water, and I knew I was in trouble. But anyway, I'm just telling people the spring is here. Our parks are going to be opening up. They're the most beautiful things you'll ever see in your life. But go prepared. Take water. Make sure people know where you are. Don't be me and go in alone. And enjoy that, because our search and rescue people have so many other better things to do.
Down in Utah County, where we are, search and rescue, I know, goes a lot of times. It feels like people are unprepared, not just for water, but for hiking and mountain climbing. They think they're more experienced than they are. And I'm sure there are experienced people who do get into trouble every once in a while. But when you read about a fall, right, a lot of times off of a cliff or something, it's they didn't have the right equipment to go out, and they were trying to scramble up a rock face without the necessary equipment.
Right. And if you're hurt and you're alone and you're out in the weeds, it can be really problematic. Well, when we come back, that was our fun fact for the day, and we are going to tease now to Maria Shilaos, who's going to talk about a body that